Is it gonna work? Is everything working? Is it gonna work? There you go, Dave. Got Rob. Cheeky plug. Who's not going to book sale? Everyone's going to book sale. Can you see my ugly mug? Can everyone see me? Not sure why I'm being quiet. Testing, Pat Stop. Testing, Pat Stop Designs. Testing. Just wonder, can you hear me all right? Hello. Good evening. I can see a few on. Thank God for that. I'm not doing it to myself. Good evening all. Lee Ashby here, Motocross and Speedway Memories. Hope you're all good. You're all good, Pat. I can see your name, so perfect. 90s Motocross Man. Suzuki Factory Fanatic. As clear as day. Not sure who that is. So, right, and this is where I'm going to have to get me explaining on. This is going to be a good interview. My man, Martineri. Who the hell is that guy? Yeah, you're all good. Not sure who that is. Not sure who that is, but evening too. Hi, Lee. How are you? And hi, Lee. How are you? Hi, Tim. How's it going? So a few of you guys like that, look, comes up Facebook user. So basically, before you come into this interview, you need, so basically you can just come out of this video. There's a link on the post. Click on that and it should give your Facebook privacy permission to see your profile is basically what it is. Otherwise, you just come up like that, saying Facebook user, and I can't see who I'm talking to, which is a bummer. So I want to be able to quote you to Rob if you got your own questions, stuff like that. Know who I'm bantering with. Hello, Harry. How's it going? Looking forward to the reunion, buddy. Reunion free at the end of the month. Make sure you all bring your hair horns. Yeah, make sure you all bring your over there. Yeah, make sure you all bring your hair horns. I'm on one tonight. Bring all your air horns. I'll have Russell messaging me now going, we're not allowed air horns. Not sure that all that is either. Evening to whoever that is. So basically, like I just said to a few of you that have come in saying Facebook user, you basically just have to come out of here, click on the link in the post, and then come back in, and then hopefully your profile will show up like these guys so I can see who I'm talking to. Otherwise, it just comes up like that, look, and I can't see who it is, which is a nightmare. It's annoying. I don't know why they do it. I'll see if I can even see who that is. Let me take my volume off of there, might help. Who is that? Oh, Hub Gerlins. Has he come on? Has he got his profile on there? There he is. There's my friend from Holland. How's it going, Hub? The old British Championship boys, Revo British Championship boys, they thought they were in Holland in the first round this year. So there was plenty of sand there, buddy. You'd have loved it. And Whiteway was awesome, Tim. You're correct. Went there last Sunday. Got a few cheeky pictures for you guys to have a look at as well. So any of you guys have not got into Reunion 3 for the end of this month yet, Russell Watts from 33MX has got it, Pure Factory. Cheeky sign on the way in. It's beautiful. Look, he's making it look beautiful. Look at that for an aerial shot. Look at that. Factory GP. Whiteway Barton back on the map. Revo British Championships inbound, coming soon, I reckon. Woo! Factory. Get yourselves booked in. Trust me, trust me, trust me. Hello, Sophie. How's it going? Are you at the Oxford Speedway? Is that all good? Is that going ahead tonight? I saw a couple of posts about they were going to check the weather and all that. Is it all good? So Sophie is at Oxford Speedway. I believe they might be racing Plymouth. Don't totally quote me on that. How about the news as well, Sophie, about Nicky Pedersen already pulling out of the ride at for Peterborough Panthers in the top league? Yeah, and he only literally rode the first meeting, involved in a crash in the first corner. and that's literally all he's done. So I'm not sure what's happening there. I haven't read the total press about it, but yeah, bit of shock news, isn't it? Because everyone was looking forward to seeing Nicky Pedersen all around the country this year. So that's a bit of a bummer. Hello, Mark Gibson. How's it going, buddy? Hope you're good. Hello, Sharon. Hope you're good. See my full lineup in the background of the Motocross the Nations. I got that from Fox Hill at CM display, and I nearly got him, and then I thought, oh, then I ended up getting him eventually because one, it's got my race number 12. Plus, I loved those 3 Brits anyway. Plus, obviously, Dobby and a few thousand more. But I thought it was even better. It's got my race number with mailing on. Plus, we won the Motocross Nations and stopped the Americans, didn't we? I'll tell you another cool one I was talking to Billy Lyles earlier as well. That was cool. I was talking to him online. He's all good. And he's just bought a new 450. Did he say Kawasaki? Yeah, I think he said he's got a new 450 Kawasaki. So Billy Lyles is riding again. And he did mention he might try and come over to the UK next year. How cool would that be? Billy Lyles, Motocross the Nations winner. Sosei sent over the B team when they called it at the time, wasn't it? Was it him, Emig and Larocco? Won the MX the Nations. I think it was in the sand as well. Pat, I need to attend Speedway this year. I've never been, and every year something pops up stopping our plans. You should go, buddy. Best one for you is either, for us, because you're Marlborough, aren't you? Is either Poole or Oxford is the closest ones for us, buddy. I went to, the last time I went to Speedway was last year's Oxford reopening, this time last year after Reunion 2. And then I'm supposed to be going to this Swindon challenge match because obviously Swindon's finished, so they're doing a challenge match. Got postponed and now it's rearranged for next Wednesday, so fingers crossed for next Wednesday. Get back down to Oxford, and they've redone the whole stadium and all that, so that's really cool. Evening, Kaz. How are you? Hope you're good. Hope you're all right. Evening, Jane. Can see all you guys now. All your profiles are coming up, so that's good. Lyles to BSMA Reunion 224. Imagine. Tapping him up. I am real bad. Had some great chats with him. He's a really nice guy. Done a couple of interviews with him. If you've not seen him, check out my YouTube channel. I've done a Skype one with him, recorded one. Even went over to his sister-in-law's to get set up on a laptop. Super nice guy. Proper loved him. He was so unlucky not to win a world title that one year when he was smashing it up that year, and he was miles in front of in the point standings, and then had a massive off, and then that was the end of that. It was a bit like the Kurt Nichols situation where he was massively in front of the 500 world title race that one year, and then broke his leg as well. Yo, Paul, how's it going? Yeah, proper legend, mate. And he's coming to the reunion as well. Oh, I also might have another little cheeky British legend that might be coming. He's going to let me know this Monday if he can come as well, but it's looking good. So fingers crossed on another one. I might even leave a little hint out there. I'll even just leave a little hint that all I'll say is arena cross. So fingers crossed on that one as well. Yeah, 100%, mate. All good, Alec. How are you? Hey, Dan, buddy. Saw Dan was riding at Whiteway on Sunday last week at the practice day, 33 MX. Saw Dan there, looking very flying trick with his bike. And the Fathead Racing on the old graphics I saw, Mr. Merrifield. All good. I'm good, mate. How's you? Hope you're well. Not long to ride it. Ride it. Hope your volume's not up too loud, boys and girls. Right. I've read the book. Was a bit delayed when reading the book, which I don't want. Which Rob was doing that. Have you read it yet? So I needed to get it done. So let's send the man the link, and let's get him in here. Get this British legend in here, and let's get these stories going. Let's just message Rob now. Where's that gone? Oh, Rob. There he is. Paste. There we go. Hopefully I can see that Rob's pretty much seen that, so hopefully we're all good. I can come off of that now, I think. We're already well into novice 3, Mr. Tim Riggs asking me. Here he is. proper Speedway legends just rolled in here. Mr. Norris, Team GB, Eastbourne Eagles legend. Did anyone see him carving them up at the Cardiff GP as well? On his Facebook page as well, you should check out the race that he's got on there. I even speak to Mikhail Max as well on Snapchat, him and Peter Colson. Always talking crap about sun and the sun and it's snowing and this and that. But whew, absolutely done bad at Everton? Eastbourne. I was just about to say Everton. I'm losing the plot. And yeah, super trick that man was. Hello, Dewey. How's it going, buddy? Hope you're feeling good. I can see you, buddy. You should be able to hear me. We'll only hear you when I bring you in. There he is. I can see the man is here. So let's get the video rocking and rolling, and then we'll bring him in. Here we go. Right, let's get it going. Let's have a little dance before we get... Beautiful, beautiful. Right, let's try it then. Here we go. Mr. Rob Andrews.
Hi, Lee.
Can you hear me all good?
I can hear you just fine. Yeah, you're coming through loud and clear, sir.
Beautiful. Much a pleasure to get you on, my friend.
The privilege and honour is all mine, Lee. I've been looking forward to this. Really looking
definitely
forward.
My pleasure, buddy. It's definitely my pleasure. This has been in for quite a while, hasn't it?
I like that introduction. You got some nice pictures there. Some of those I don't think even I've seen. I don't know where you got those from.
I might have them to show on the screen as well then, so that's good.
Yeah, we can. We'll
get into all that. We'll get into that. Yeah, look, there's already loads of people in here already. Hello, legend.
Hello, Harry Ford.
Yes. Ben's just checking that he's not anonymous. You're not, Ben. You are. I can see you. So if you've got a nice question for the man here, let me know. Dean's happy he's just made it home in time.
Somebody as big and beardy as Ben could never be anonymous. You don't forget the guy.
No, yeah, and he's very taller than you look on screen, like everyone, eh?
Yeah.
I was literally like flipping out, Ben. You're like about 6'7", 6'8". I thought I was quite tall at 6'1", but towers above me. But yeah, I'll be having some fun with Ben soon at Ling. Going to be doing you going up to Ling?
What, me?
Yeah.
No, I haven't been to a British Championship in a long time, and Ling is an awful long drive for me. But great track though. Used to really enjoy riding there. And I remember watching. When would it have been? Within the last couple of years, I saw a British Championship on the TV there, and it was very interesting because the track was very similar to how we used to race it, and it was interesting because the guys that were racing, the modern British Championship riders, they look so good. I need to choose my words here carefully here. They look so good on a modern jumpy track, but on that old sort of rough gnarly track, they kind of look like they were going the same speed as we did back in the day. It's interesting because they look a lot faster than us when you put them on a modern supercrossy track.
A lot of the guys seem to, I suppose they get brought up on just literally the jumps now, don't they? Sort of almost outdoor supercross type of style.
Yeah, it was nice to see them riding on a proper choppy outdoor track and seeing how they cope with that. As it was, in fact, I enjoyed watching the GP at the weekend from Switzerland as well, because that was a little bit more old school and it was very rutty and difficult, and that produced good racing as a result.
Some good tracks. Used to enjoy Switzerland yourself, didn't you? There's some good tracks.
There were some good tracks. Let me just make my screen a bit bigger. There you go. Yeah, Switzerland. Where did we race in Switzerland? Roland was in Switzerland. Payerne was probably my favourite.
Yeah, that's it.
Payerne, yeah, good track there. Beautiful scenery, nice outdoor tracks, how motocross used to be. And it's a shame they're not used anymore, but I posted something on Facebook a few days ago, and somebody replied and said, well, why don't we go to Payerne and places like that? But they're just incompatible these days with the way the sport is, and really just the size of the trucks and the number of trucks that the teams bring, and there just isn't the space at a place like Payerne. You do need that hard standing parking, and that's just the direction the sport's gone, and there's no going back from that. And and that part I really like. If you go to the GP and you go down to Matterley, it's very impressive walking through the pits as it is in a US Supercross. That's just how it is these days, and I enjoy that part of it.
I've got Mr. Ken Winstanley's just come on and said, looking good, Rob. Hi, Ken.
Thank you, Ken. There's a caveat there. Looking good considering how old I am.
I think he's just being nice, hopefully. Ian Chesterman here. Hi, Ian. Congratulations on your wedding as well. I see that. He's put, Hayley, watching from the beach in the Caribbean. Hey, Rob, loved the book. Well,
thank you very much, Ian. Very envious of you in the Caribbean, but glad that you love the book. But lots of people do love the book and have done. And that's obviously, the book's been a big part of my life the past 2 or 3 years, and I put a lot of effort into it. And it's the feedback that I get from people that really is the icing on the cake. Because when you write something like that yourself, I thought I'd done a pretty good job of it, but you never know until it goes out into the big wide world. But to see the feedback I get from people that have bought it is just amazing. And if you go on Trustpilot and see all the reviews there, hundreds of just simply amazing reviews from people I've never met. I don't know them personally, but they've gone to the trouble of going on to Trustpilot and writing fantastic reviews, and that's just really humbling. So thank you, everybody who's bought one. And if you haven't bought one, please buy one. That's the one. I got a big pile here. It took you a while to read it, though, Lee, I must say.
It did, but it's because there you go. I've even got that.
I hope you enjoy my book. There you go. Thing is, I knew that once you actually picked it up and got your head into it, you wouldn't be able to put it down. Yes. It was just that, you bought it and you'd somehow kind of managed. I know you're a busy man, but you'd somehow managed to leave it on the side table there and not actually get started on it. But once you got started on it, you were hooked, weren't you?
100%. I read it in 2 days, yeah.
2 days, really?
Yeah. Yeah, because I've got like loads of Speedway books and a few other Motocross books I haven't looked at, but obviously I knew I needed to get into this one. I knew I'd like it because I've spoke to quite a few people that have been reading it as well, so I knew it was going to be good. And it was very good. Personally read it, and yeah, the details are amazing, stuff that we would never know, and it's very interesting. It's sort of very similar when we do the interviews. You find out things, and riders even find out things about other riders they didn't even know that they race with all their career, that sort of thing. So many things we learned from that book, and I have got plenty of questions on that as well.
I'm just a fan like you. I'm a fan of motocross and have been since I first discovered it back in 1977 or 6. And for whatever reason, I ended up getting to a higher level than a lot of people, and it was really, really interesting. So when it came time to write a book, I just thought there's so much cool and interesting stuff that happened in my career, and it'd be the same for any other rider. They'd also have their own stories that they could tell, and it was very cool and very interesting. And I thought, let's write something, that as a fan I would want to read. I'd want to know how it all worked inside if you were the other side of the fence, and all those funny stories and gossip and that sort of thing, all that insider information. So that's what I concentrated on putting into the book. And I had some really, really good advice right at the beginning from my friend Richard Goddard. It was the Goddard family that first took me to motocross back in 1977. Don't know whether he's watching tonight. But when I first told him I'm going to write a book, he said, Rob, explain how it felt. So explain how it felt. 4 words. Explain how it felt. And I just stopped and thought about that and thought, yeah, that's what an autobiography, especially a sports autobiography, needs to convey. that what it actually felt like to be on that journey and to experience that. And so when I wrote it, I really tried hard to do that, and bring the reader alongside me, and let them experience all of the cool stuff that I was fortunate enough to experience personally. And from what people tell me, I've gone a good way to succeeding in that task.
Yeah, for sure, definitely. Everyone I spoke to, and obviously now I've read it myself, it was really good, really, really good.
Thank you.
Really good, very good, Rob. Unbelievable books, to be fair. I would recommend it to anyone. Anyone that hasn't got it, you should definitely get it. It's one of the, it is the best book I've read. So on Motocross.
Thank you very much.
Yeah, no problem.
That's the book advert out the way, anyway.
Yeah. Yeah. So there's loads of questions on here from the fans already, so I better get cracking with them. Right, I've got Gary Morgan who's put, "Hi Lee, did Rob ever ride one of the HRC Hondas? If so, what did he think of it? And was it better than the factory Kawasaki that he raced?"
Yes, I did. Wasn't supposed to, but I remember being down at Camberley, down London way, which was a place you might have heard of. It was a bit of a sort of illegal riding area, really. It was a bit of waste ground at Camberley, but it was rough as hell there. And so lots of people used to ride there. I think at weekends it got very, very busy with illegal riders. But in the week, you'd get a lot of the British Championship guys would go down there. And so I was down there one day. I can't remember when it was. It might have been actually when I rode the Motocross to Nations. I took my 125 Kawasaki down there for one day of practice before we went. And I think Thorpe was there then. And it was quiet. There was nobody around. And he said, "Do you want to have a go on my bike?" And so I did just a couple of laps on this was his 85 bike. So it probably was that day I went down with my 125 Kawasaki. And I just did a couple of slow laps on it, really, because I didn't want to break it. It was a difficult, bumpy track anyway. And it was a priceless piece of factory hardware. So I didn't want to go berserk on it, but I rode it for a couple of laps. And my recollections of it from those 2 laps were that the power was just incredible, but not so much in, if nobody's ridden a factory bike before and they get on one, what do people think? They think, it's going to be just so powerful, and it's going to pull your arms out. And it wasn't like that at all. It was almost like an electric motor. And I remember thinking that whatever gear I was in, whether I was in second, third or fourth, I'd open the throttle, the amount of forward thrust seemed to be the same in whatever gear and whatever revs I was at. And so if you revved it out in a lower gear, it didn't seem to jump out of your hands. It just seemed to accelerate forward, rather like a four-stroke does today. If you'd got it in third gear at lower revs and you turned the throttle, it just went forward at that same sort of speed. And that's about all I remember about it. It was a bumpy sand track, so I couldn't really test the suspension. I only did 2 laps on it. Did I think it was better than the Kawasaki that I raced? Yeah, I think it probably was. Didn't really ride it enough to get a real feel for it, but I think it was definitely better than the Kawasaki that I raced, although that was a very good bike. But the best 500 I ever rode, I honestly think, was Kurt Nichols' KTM, because I tested that twice, 93 500 KTM. Tested that for Dirt Rider magazine twice. Once at Ellsworth, once at Chippenham, that sandy place.
Yeah. Wild Tracks,
over in East Anglia. And that was just brilliant. It had that similar sort of electric motor power delivery, but everything about that bike, and considering KTMs weren't that good at the time, I tested stock KTMs and they were okay, but they were struggling to keep up with Japanese bikes. But Kurt's bike, that 500, every element of it was just so sorted. The controls were great, the brakes were fantastic, the clutch was good, the power delivery was great, the turning was great. The suspension was fantastic. His forks, especially when I rode the 92 at Ellsworth. Ellsworth is a rock hard pack track, lots of choppy small bumps, and he had conventional Marzocchi forks on that. Probably works Marzocchi's, but they were conventional forks. And I remember riding that at Ellsworth and just coming to the realization that coming into corners, I didn't need to find a smooth line. I didn't need to miss the braking bumps. just ride over the braking bumps. It's like they weren't there. Just the best forks I've ever ridden on that bike. So maybe if I'd ridden David's bike for longer, I would have got a better idea of what it was really like, and not just on a really bumpy sandy track, but as it stands with my experience of riding those bikes, Kurt's was better.
Interesting.
It is interesting, isn't it? Because I wouldn't have thought. I'm sitting here thinking, are you sure about it, Rob? Because it's a pretty bold statement.
Yeah.
He did 2 laps on Dave, so
yes, yeah. It'd be nice to, like you said, rode it somewhere else, maybe at Ellsworth and a few others. And right, that was interesting. Would have never thought that. Mike Allport here. How you doing, Mike? He's just put first memory of Rob was Red Barn. Is that Claverley? Is that how they say it? When he was riding the whistling Mako 125.
Yeah. Hello, Mike. Best racing days of my life down there. That was 78, 79, racing with the Whalley Wasps. There were so many clubs in the West Midlands at that point. Whalley Wasps, Sandal Heathens, West Midlands or West Mercia, was it? Great clubs, great atmosphere. Loved riding down there. I'd only been racing 78. I started in 77. I've been racing just over a year. So, year to sort of 2 years into my career, and I'd started to suddenly get good, and particularly when I got that Mako, I then suddenly started to win schoolboy races, and just the most fun ever. Just loved those times. There was no pressure. I'd got all the excitement of, wow, I'm actually starting to win trophies, and I got that Mako. What had I been riding? That was my 3rd ever bike. I'd bought a TM125 with my own money, £285 it cost. We ran that for 6 months, and then my dad got hooked into the sport, and so he bought me a YZ125. Ran that for a year, and then we decided to change to the Mako. I'd run that Yamaha YZ125 for a year with the original rear tyre on it for the entire year, because I didn't know anything about motocross back then, and I thought if it's still got knobbles on it, it must be good. But it obviously wasn't good, but I didn't know back then. So we switched to that Mako, and all of a sudden I started going better. And I don't know whether it was because that Mako was a better bike, or whether it was just because the confidence of having a new bike and that comes with that. I don't know, but yeah, I used to race in the Whalley Wasps. Pat stopped, literally nodding my head, agreeing to Sir Rob Andrew. I hope you're not nodding your head, nodding off, Pat. Back to Claverley. Claverley was a great track as well. One of probably my favourite schoolboy track. And yeah, I remember riding that Mako there. They call it a whistling Mako because it was a reed valve induction on it. Weird looking thing. And so I couldn't hear it, but people on the side of the track said it used to make a whistling sound. And so it became known as Rob's whistling Mako. There's a story in the book about that, which I will retell now for people that haven't read it. And that is that Mako, it was a 125 Mako, and it had a kickstart on the left-hand side of the engine, and the gear shifter was also on the left-hand side, obviously. And the gear shifter shaft was a little skinny shaft that came through the center of the kickstart shaft, right through the middle of it. And it was only about 10 millimeter diameter. And so if you whack the gear lever on a post, it would break regularly. And I would regularly do that. And my dad wasn't really a mechanic, but he learned how to fix this. And what you had to do is you had to take the right-hand sort of clutch cover off the bike and then pull the broken shaft out and then put a new one through the engine in order to replace it. Well, I did this in one race at Claverley, and my dad didn't get it finished in time. There wasn't a lot of time between races, and my expert race was on the start line, and he bolted it back up together, and I'd missed the start, and I raced down there and went over the start line just as the leaders had come around. About 6 of the leaders had come around to complete their first lap. I didn't care. I just wanted to race. You know what it's like back then. You just didn't want to miss the race. Yeah. And so I ran as fast as I could, and I managed to overtake all of those 6 riders and overtook the leader on the last lap. And then as I came round, I'd got the last lap flag, and then I'd overtaken the leader. So as I came round, I got the last lap flag again because the leader hadn't come round yet because I'd overtaken him, because I'd unlapped myself. And so hence I had the last lap flag twice before I got the checkered flag. I don't know where I finished, probably 15th or something, because I was a lap down. But it was an interesting story. I think I won the other races that day.
Yeah, that's a good story. I like that. Unlapped yourself. That's a good one. I've got quite a few hellos. I've had a hello from Holland, from Hub Girlins. I've had someone is got Raina here. Is hi Rob, hi Lee. Greetings from Austria.
Hello, Raina.
Yeah, and we've just had obviously Ian's on his. I think he's still on his honeymoon in the Caribbean, and he's watching us. So that's really cool. I've got Ben, Mr. Ben Rumbold. I think he's got another one down here where he completed it. There we go. Hey, great to see you, Mr. Andrews. Thanks for the compliments. You were massively influential with both your riding and your writing. Always thankful for your help in getting my MX media career started. What got you into writing for DBR in the first place?
That's a good question. Am I disappearing behind that caption? There you go. It's gone.
Oh, I got rid of it.
That's a good question, Ben. Nobody's ever asked me about that. When I stopped racing in 1990, I was, I can't say I stopped at the top of my career because, you know, my championship results had tailed off a bit, but I had like the top 5 in my last GP and a second in my last British Championship. So I hadn't kind of fallen into the abyss. I was still quite a fast rider, but I wanted to stay involved with the sport. I didn't want to do the racing anymore because I'd kind of got to the point where I thought I've got as good as I'm going to get with the racing. That's really why I stopped. You know, after a couple of seasons of diminishing results, really due to injury and bad luck and that sort of thing, I thought I'm not going to get any better than this. So that's why I called it quits. But I wanted to stay involved. I met Mike Greenoff a few years ago when he was at Motorcycle News. And he'd moved across to be the editor of Dirt Bike Rider. And so we just kind of got talking and I said, you know, can I do your test riding? And I suppose for him, that was quite a good scoop, really, to get, you know, someone that's top British Championship and you know, still proven a top 10 guy in GP. He's got a 5th in the last GP. So, you know, a good rider to be your test rider as well. So we did that. So I started off just doing the test and he was writing them. And I said to him, well, you know, can I have a go at writing? And he said, yeah, why not? So I just tried writing my first test. You know, I'd never had any training in journalism or anything. I think I got a B in my English O level, but that was it. But I thought, well, let's have a go at doing it. And I used to read Jack Bernicle's stuff. You know, I've always admired Jack Bernicle's writing, as I know that Ben has as well. Lots of people have. And I thought, well, yeah, I'll have a go at that. Never thought I would. Still can't ever equal Jack Bernicle. You know, he's just such a great journalist. But that's how it came about. I just started doing those tests and then I said, can I write them? And so it went from there. And then, you know, obviously I must have done a decent job of writing those tests because they then carried on using me for quite a number of years. I had a little break when we were building a house and I was just a bit too busy. And then I went back to it again for a few years. And then I did test riding for MX UK magazine out of Bath. They were around for a little while. So yeah, I did test riding for quite a long time. And then that's really where my writing came from. Never had any thoughts of doing a book back then, but yeah, that's how it started. But good question, Ben.
I remember seeing you in the DBR all the time on them tests and stuff like that with the bikes. Was that always interesting for you to get to test so many different bikes? Because I think you got to test all the new ones, didn't you? And then obviously factory riders' bikes and things like that.
It was great fun. You know, it was, how often was I doing that? You know, it was probably 1 or 2 a month, you know, maybe more in the you know, when the new bikes came out, there might have been more frequent tests than that. But yeah, I enjoyed doing it. And I suppose at the time, you don't really appreciate how cool it is. Now I look back and think, actually, that's pretty damn cool. You know, I've got loads of DBR magazines in my filing cabinets here, and then I come on the covers of all of them. And, you know, I've got more pictures in DBR as a test rider than I ever did as a racer. Yeah, and for the first couple of years as well, I did a deal with Yoko Clothing. I'd used Yoko Clothing when I was racing, and I said, look, I'm going to do this test rider. Will you pay me so much a picture? And they went, yeah, absolutely. And so I did very well out of that.
That was good.
And then other gear manufacturers then got pissed off and said to Greenoff, come on, you can't have your guy wearing Yoko every week. And so I had to stop it, really. But yeah, it was really cool. We used to ride all the new bikes, which would turn up, brand new gear. Yeah, brand new gear, brand new bike. Ride it. I'd have to write the report afterwards. That'd take me a few evenings to do that. But it was great. And then every now and then we'd get to ride factory bikes. So I've ridden tons of factory bikes. Nichols KTM, Malin's 250, Malin's 500, the perimeter frame thing, Albertine's bikes, Manic Bavoat bikes, Peak Hondas, countless ones, countless factory bikes. And all the factory bikes I rode were good. There's one, Paul Malin's 250 Kawasaki. I remember that day very well. It's become a very famous and much shared.
It's an iconic picture, I would say now, Rob. I remember that myself, even back then in the DBR, let alone.
And the number of times that pops up on the internet, it's all the time, which is fine. And a lot of Americans say, that's Robbie Reynard. Robbie Reynard. No, it's not Robbie Reynard, it's Rob Andrews. And then other people, it's Jeff Emig or it's Malin. No, it's Malin's bike, and that's me on it. And one astute person actually said to me, if you look at that picture, underneath your logo, there's a bit of clone brush there. If you see that roost, it looks a bit weird. And somebody said, that picture's faked. You can tell because it's got clone brush on there. As in, it's been photoshopped. And I'll tell you why it's been photoshopped. You go back to that. Yeah. Because it's taken from that. And so all I've got is this chromelin. I never had the original photo. That's the chromelin of the double spread from the magazine. So in order to get these pictures out of these corners, I very poorly on Photoshop or Paint Shop Pro, whatever it was, just clone brushed them out. And so that's why it looks a bit dodgy in the corner. Yeah, that's the original chromelin from the magazine article.
Could have done with Pat Stott around then.
I wish I'd got the original negative. That's been lost because DBR moved from Key Publishing to the DBR and Trials of Motocross News lot, and who knows where that negative is. But it's such a shame that was lost, and so all I've got is a scan of that chromelin, which is a shame. But I remember that day very well. It was at Chippenham, and we rode both the 250 and the perimeter frame 500. Which also was a good bike. And I thought he didn't like it, but that was a good bike as well. I'll talk to you about that in a minute, actually. I'll get back to that in a second. But that berm shot, I remember where it was at Chippenham, and it was just nice soft sand. And I went and I was quite good at doing those bar drags. Wow. Because if you do magazine shoots, all the shots that you see in magazines, they're just a rider doing one corner at a time. You set it up, and often they're very slow. They might look fast, but they're actually very slow shots. But you're just working on one corner. You're not just riding around laps and laps and laps. You're just trying to set up one good shot. Yeah. And so I just cut this nice little berm into there, and it was really, really wide. To get a shot like that, you've got to be going some sort of speed. That was third gear, that bar drag shot. So you can't do a very tight corner on something like that. So it was actually a nice gradual arc. And I just went around it like, I don't know, 10, 12 times just to build this rut up just slowly. And each time it's getting a little bit bigger. And the cameraman there, Kevin Chevis, I said to him, don't take photos yet. I'm just building it up. And then it just started to get good. And then I probably did that, I would guess, probably 10 or 12 times like that with the clutch in the ground. And I knew it was good. I knew it was good. I didn't know obviously it wasn't digital camera, so you couldn't see it, but I just thought, Christ, we got some good stuff there. Yeah. And the first time I saw it was when it was actually in the magazine. Yeah. I can't remember where I was. I've got a message on my thing. I can't remember where it was, but I remember seeing the magazine and other people were there, and they just were shaking their head and going, it's a good shot. Yeah, that was third gear, so it was going at decent sort of speed, and it wasn't a crash, and I did it a dozen times before the berm blew out.
And like you said, I've seen it quite a few times popping up all over the internet, and I remember it back from then. So yeah, I've seen it loads of times. It is a very iconic shot now, isn't it? Yeah. Definitely, it's way around.
Not during a race. Pitcher couldn't do that during the race.
Yeah.
And somebody else once said to me, "Why is it always left-handers?" And I said, "Yeah, if all the GP tracks had just been left-hand turns, I'd have been world champion time and time over." Couldn't go around corners. That's the problem.
You're a Speedway man anyway, let's see, really. Oh, brilliant. Right, I've got Gareth Edwards here. Hello, Rob. Book was a great read. Question. Which rider from any era was or is the most skillful and technical rider you've ever seen? Ooh.
That's the easiest question to answer ever, and that is David Bailey.
Smooth.
David Bailey, you know, I don't think I had heroes in motocross. It's difficult to have a hero in a sport where you are trying to compete with those same people. You can't be lining up next to your hero and be wanting to beat him. But anyway, but in terms of riders I admired, it was David Bailey, because it's just his style and his technique was just so perfect. He seemed to be the first rider that had really analysed how to go fast on a bike and what the technique was from a physics side of it. You know, and it was just perfect. He was smooth, he was fast, it was effortless, and so he was the guy that I admired the most. You know, and I didn't witness his crash when he got injured, but I was at the track and I was there like 2 minutes after it happened, because there were two obstacles on that track that I was racing the Golden State Series. We were in the 500 class, he was in the 250s. They were out on track before us, and so I thought I need to see how David and those other guys do this one section and then the other section. I went to the furthest section first, saw him stick this sort of staircase obstacle combination just perfectly on his first lap. And I thought, okay, that's how we do it. And then there was another low double jump back more towards the pits. And so I ran back over there because we were out, you know, the next session, I think, and then see yellow flags and see David's on the ground. I didn't see it happen, but it was just so shocking when he hurt himself like that. And it really affected me because, you know, somebody as smooth, precise and accurate and as perfect as David Bailey can get hurt, then it could happen to anybody. So that really shook me up for a while. And if you've read the book, you'll have read that I was over there with Mark Banks and our two mechanics racing the Golden State Series, and we went to see him in hospital 2 weeks later because the next round was up near San Francisco again. And we went there. I'd never met the guy. I was sure that he wouldn't know who the hell I was, or Mark. But we all thought we should go and see him. He'd been in hospital for 2 weeks. And so we just turned up at the hospital and said, you know, my name's Rob and this is Mark and we're motocross riders racing the Golden State Series. And we just thought we'd come and visit him if he wants to see us. And he said, yeah. And so we went in and we saw him in his hospital bed. And it was very sad, very sad to see him like that. But we came away still admiring his, what's the word? You know, his will to fight it and to get better. You know, ultimately, there's nothing you can do. No amount of willpower is going to fix a spinal cord injury. But yeah, he saw us, you know, and he remembers that. I know David these days. I play golf with David. He plays golf from his wheelchair. So I sometimes, if I'm in America, I go and hit a few balls with him, and he remembers that day. Yeah. So yeah, he was my favourite and most respected rival, I think.
Might have to help me trying to get him on here for me, Rob.
Yeah, he'd be a great guy to have on. He's a lovely guy, David. Yeah, very, very humble. You know, he's got some good stories to tell as well.
Yeah, I bet.
He said stuff to me, and I think that's such a cool story. You should put that in a book.
Yeah. Yeah, I used to even love it when he was on the like doing the commentary and all that on the AMA Motocross and all that outdoors. He was really good on that as well, wasn't he?
Yeah.
Yeah, I loved watching that.
He's a great guy, and you know, he was very respectful of the European riders. Yeah. And he wanted to finish his career in GPs.
Wow,
he wanted to do a year in Europe at the end of his career, and he never got to do it.
That'd have been amazing, wouldn't it?
Yeah.
What a bummer. Is that your pictures from when you were over?
That was from Gorman. And what I was just saying about when you're doing test riding, some of the shots, or all the shots, are just set up corners. That particular one, go back to that previous one, That particular one was just on a road, on a dirt track, and it was just soft sand, and we just made a little corner, and that's like second gear going, I don't know, 10, 15 miles an hour. That's all. But what makes it is the fact that you've got those mountains in the background, and the guy took it, Fran Kuhn. He was a great photographer, and he would use fill-in flash. So that's what made the colours all pop on those photos. If you go to the next one, the berm shot, the sandy berm, that was in a riverbed, again at Gorman. So it's not a proper racetrack, but it was a dried up riverbed. And so that sand was really, really soft. And Mark Banks and I were there. And so, as I described with that Kawasaki shot, we just cut a corner in. Again, that was third gear on the 500. Same corner, different shot. And just railed that time and time and time again. Problem is, the faster you go, what ends up is you end up blowing a hole in the berm. Your back wheel explodes it a bit, and then you've lost that beautiful sort of gradual radius that you need to be able to do a shot like that.
Very cool that was. Love them pictures.
The problem with that burn shot there is that my knee kept getting burnt on the exhaust, because the exhaust on the right hand side, and they didn't have the lower exhaust then. The exhausts were higher up by the tank, and so if you're doing a long left hand corner and you're gripping the bike with your right knee, the knee would get burned. So that was a problem. I have to keep stopping. Or some of them, I'm trying to corner with my knee off the tank, which is very difficult because you grip the bike with your knees. You see some of them, I'm trying to lift my knee off, and that's just because the skin's burning.
Brilliant. I've got so many people have asked so many questions. There's so many. Right, I got this is definitely going to be a part 2 thing as well. I can 100% Rob. So I hope you're going to be able to do that. Right. We got Hub is here from the Dutch guy. Hi, Hub. He's put, hello, Rob. Congratulations again on your birthday. That was recent as well, wasn't it?
Sunday.
Yeah.
Sunday just gone.
Yeah. What did you think of the Dutch sand circuits and the supporters?
Oh, I hate that bloody Dutch sand. It's horrible stuff. What did I think of Dutch sand? They were difficult for us guys because we didn't ride it enough. And that used to be the same. These days, all the GP guys are good in sand, and they're good in sand because many, many years ago, they realized that if you're going to have any chance of a world championship, you've got to learn how to ride sand. And so they all live in Lommel. And it's a learned skill. If you don't ride sand very often, you're not going to be very good at it. Just like the Dutch riders never rode hard pack very often, so they weren't very good at it. And so you've got to ride in those conditions in order to improve in it. And so I would practice in sand from time to time. We'd go to Matchams, and sometimes I'd do some trips over to Belgium, Holland in the pre-season. But riding it 3 or 4 times, going over a week before the season starts isn't going to do much for you if you've got to then race a GP in sand 6 months later. You need to do it regularly. So that's where somebody like Kurt had an advantage, because he lived in Belgium. He could ride sand tracks and hard tracks all the time. And that was something that I didn't have that same advantage. When I did go over to Holland to ride in it, then I would pick it up quite quickly. And one of my best ever rides in the British Championship was 1989. We had the British Championship at Matchams Park, and I beat Thorpe straight up in the second race there. And that's because for a week beforehand with Di Smith, my riding partner at the time, and we just found the roughest, nastiest sand track in Belgium or Holland, I can't remember which it was, and just rode that, and it was awful. I hated it. It was bumpy, it was deep, and I just felt that I wasn't going very well around there, but we just rode it and rode it and rode it, and then we rode it the next day, and we rode it the day after that, and it was pissing down with rain. It was horrible, and it was just the two of us in a cold, wet van in the beginning of March or whenever, but we just rode it. And then when we got to Matchams was also very bumpy and very sandy and very difficult, but it wasn't as bumpy, sandy and difficult as the place we'd just been riding the week before. And so Matchams seemed easy. And so that one race, I don't know what I did different, but I just rode around. Sorry, my printer's making a noise. It'll go off in a second. I just rode around that. I just rode around Matchams and kind of just did my own thing and was just going fast. Didn't feel like I was going fast. I was just riding my own thing, but obviously my level had just jumped up there. And so I think I came third overall on the day, but having David behind me all race and beating in sand, which is something I didn't consider I was very good at, was one of my most satisfying results. And I know David cries about it every night when he goes to sleep, the fact that he lost that one race with me. I'm sure he does. Even though 30 odd years later, I'm sure it still stinks up. Just kidding, Dave.
Yeah, brilliant. I've got a couple of guys here that have mentioned it. You'll know Martin Neary.
I know Martin Neary.
Massive collector. He's got some stuff, that boy. And then so Lee Britton started this off by saying, "Hi Rob, how was it for you? Was it you that was riding the Motocross the Nations on a standard bike against factory machines?" And Martin just follows it up with, "Am I correct in saying that your Motocross the Nations 1985 bib from Geldof is West Germany behind you?"
Martin Neary, I love you, man, but you are a nerd. You are a motocross nerd. You're absolutely right. There he is. There he is with my British Championship shirt from 1990. Yeah, Motocross to Nations 1985. That is that one there, number 9 there. Yeah, that's my bib from Geldorf. How was it riding a standard bike? There it is. It was what it was. If you don't know the story, if you haven't bought the book, then the very short version is that because of political reasons, the British Federation, the ACU, scheduled a national championship for 125s and 250s on the same day as the MXDN. So all the regular 125 and 250 guys were tied up racing that. And so Britain didn't have a 125 rider. Britain didn't have a 125 rider until like literally 8-9 days before. And it was madness. And I must have said to somebody, I don't know who, this is nuts, you know, bloody hell, I was a 500 guy. I said, I'd race a 125. And next thing I know, I got a call from Albert Carter, the team manager. And he said, Rob, somebody told me you'd ride a 125 for us at the Nations. And I said, absolutely, of course I would. And he said, okay, you're on the team. And that was it, just like that.
Wow.
Just you're on the Motocross to Nations team, which is cool. But I was a 500 rider. I hadn't ridden the 125 in years.
Yeah.
I just started to score some points in GPs. So I was the 39th ranked rider in the 500 class in the 1985 season. I'd had I had a 10th place in my last GP. I think that was my first points at Luxembourg. So I'd only just scored GP points. And here I was going to be riding a 125 for Great Britain. And I just switched to Kawasaki. Kawasaki kind of picked me up. I had been on a Mako for the first part of 85. Alec Wright from Kawasaki helped me out the last few GP, so I just switched to Kawasaki. So I rang Alec and said, brilliant news, I'm going to be riding a 125 for Britain in the Nations. And he said, I can't help you, because he and his fellow importers were in dispute with the ACU about the fact that they scheduled this 125 and 250 national championship. So none of the importer teams were releasing their contracted riders to race the Nations. So he couldn't be seen to be helping me. So I had to go out and buy a bike, because the choice was either turn the opportunity down or buy my own bike. And so I thought about it and thought, I'm probably never going to get this chance again to race for my country. And I considered that a big opportunity and a big honour. And so I scoured the Trials in Motocross news and found a used 125 advertised locally from a schoolboy who was retiring. And so I sent my mechanic out to buy that, because I thought they might charge more if they knew it was going to a top rider. So I bought that 125, and it was absolutely stock. The kid had done a season on it, half a season or whatever. We had no spares for it. We had no parts for it. We had no pipes or any trick stuff. It was just an absolutely standard bike. So we put some new tyres on it. We put a new seat cover and some rental handlebars, changed the stickers, gave it a check over, and that was it. And then we took it to the Motocross to Nations.
Wow.
And I was in that class. There was Ron Lachine on a RC125 Honda, and there was Corrado Maddy, Davey Strybos, and Pekka Vekkanen, the top three in the 125 World Championship, on some on factory Kajivas, and they were the business back in the day, those Kajivas. And I had my shitty old used 125 Kawasaki, but I didn't think of it. I didn't want to think of it as a disadvantage. You can't go to the start line thinking, what chance have I got against that? I went on the start line. I've got a picture of it. You look on the video. I'm on the start line alongside David Bailey on his RC 500, because 125s, 250s and 500s, we all went in the same race that year. 63 riders on the line, and I'm next to David Bailey, and he's on his priceless factory 500 Honda, and I'm on my 125 that I bought second hand off a schoolboy. And his exhaust pipe was worth more than my entire bike. We've already worked that out. But I didn't want to let it get in my head as a disadvantage. You know, I was there. I was on the start line. I was going to do the best that I could on the motorcycle that I was riding, and so that's what I did. I rode my hardest, and it was difficult because I wasn't used to riding a 125. I'd ridden it for 30 or 40 minutes at Camberley, as I mentioned earlier. That was the only time I'd ridden it. So prior to that, it would have been 3 or 4 years ago that I'd ridden a 125. So I went to Geldorf, and so all through practice, I'm like in the wrong gear all the time. Through the first couple of races, I'm in the wrong gear. You know, you're either revving it out too much, or you grab another gear and it bogs. It takes a while to get used to riding a 125. You know, you've got to get your shift points just right, and you've got to carry that speed, and you've got to learn, you know, how hard you can accelerate. When you're coming off a 500, it's all about winding the throttle on gently as you come out of the corner. Well, that doesn't work on a 125. You've got to wring its neck coming out of the corner, but you're not sure where that sort of breaking point of the tires is. So it took a while to get used to, but I just rode it as fast as I could. First race, I had a crash. Somebody crashed into me, and my handlebars dropped a bit, so I had to pit stop. I can't remember where I came in that. And then, but in the last race, I was 5th or 6th, I think, 6th maybe in that 125 race, and so. And I passed another guy in the very last corner. So those last few laps of that last race, I was really getting into it, and everybody was cheering me on. There's quite a lot of fans there, and you know, Thorpe did good. You know, he was winning that race. He'd won the first one. I think he got second in the second one, and then he was leading the last. So he was doing as good as he could do. He was leading, so they were all cheering me on, because we were at that point sitting about 7th place in the team standings. But I got Guy Van Giesegem, I think, on the last lap, and then I got, can't remember the guy's name, Karl Sulzer, Austrian guy. I got somebody in the very last corner, which enabled us to steal 5th place in the team standings, which is good. And so maybe if I hadn't have even crashed in the first race, who knows, I might have even made the podium. And that was just with 2 riders, because Kurt broke his leg on the Saturday in practice as well. So
amazing to do that, really. That was obviously an amazing experience, full stop.
It was an amazing experience, yeah. And again, you probably don't appreciate it as much at the time as you do later when you look back. You know, it was a great honour. Not many people get the chance to ride for their country. Yeah, and that's it. There was some British fans there from up Yorkshire. Yeah. I got a picture of them in the book of me. They all came around the van, and they got Union Jack shirts and shorts on and stuff, and took pictures with us. And they were waving flags on the side. And so there was this jump going up the hill. That's the jump where Kurt crashed, actually.
Oh, is it?
So it was a nice little floaty jump. So just a little finger acknowledgement to the guys from up north that travelled all down there to see us.
Amazing. That's really cool.
And in fact, before you go, because Martin spotted that bib.
Yeah.
That's the cap that you get.
Wow.
Not many people have got one of those.
No.
I used to hear of footballers, you know, getting capped for England, and I never knew what it was when I was younger. And then after I rode, you realise you get a cap. That's what it means. Cap for England, get a cap. and it says Motocross des Nations for us Brits, West Germany 1985, ACU on the front. Very, very proud of that.
Right, it's very cool.
Doesn't
Love
fit.
that. Love that. Love that. Just got Andrew Batten said, spoke to Robert Farley and I said to him about the amount of bad luck he had and still stayed focused was testimony to his love of motocross.
Yeah, I suppose I've only just realised maybe how much bad luck I had from writing the book, because all of a sudden you got all those years of racing experience that you're condensing into a story, and so I started to look through all of my in researching for the book. I looked through my press cuttings. I used to keep all my old race reports. I got a big ring binder full of details of all the races that I did from 1985 onwards. Not in great detail, but my position, what race it was, the date, positions, and and what had happened. And I was never one to really make excuses. So when I walked through a plate glass window and nearly bled to death on the floor of a supermarket, my next race report after that just said first race after arm injury. Didn't really make a big deal of it. But reading through all of those, I think, shit, God, I did have a lot of things go wrong. And maybe at the time I was thinking that everybody else had that bad luck as well. I don't know. Maybe they did. But it's when you see it through, when your focus is narrowed onto that career and the things that happened in the career as a result of trying to put a book together, it becomes more in focus. Wow, this happened, that happened, that happened, that happened. And things I've forgotten about. You read through the race report and you go, Christ, yeah, I forgot that happened. Oh, and then that broke off the bike. I'd forgotten about that. And then this happened. And then I had a head-on car crash. And then, I walked the plate glass window. And then I did my knee ligaments. And then I did that. And yeah, it was a tough life. But we were following our dreams. And I can't speak for other people, but that's what I was doing. I wanted to, I'd found something that I was quite good at, and I wanted to do my very best to be the best that I could possibly be. I didn't think I'd ever be world champion, but I just wanted to keep improving and get the best that I could. And so you had to be tough and you had to ride through injuries, or at least I did. I don't know whether it was the right thing to do, particularly with concussions. Probably should have had time off, but back then, for me, and the Rocky movies had just been out, hadn't they? That's when Rocky came along. So you watch those Rocky movies, and he's just a badass, and he's training, and he's getting beaten, and so you think, I need to be like that.
Certainly were after the arm one. Jesus.
Yeah, I raced like, what was it, 10 days after severing my radial artery, and what a completely stupid thing to do.
Yeah.
Looking back, I literally nearly bled to death on the floor of Tesco's supermarket after accidentally walking through the window and slicing right through my arm, and the blood was squirting on the ceiling, and it was a serious injury. And then I end up in hospital and they fix me up and they put me in plaster. And then the next day I'd say to the surgeon, can I go and race my motorbike in 10 days' time? I'm surprised he didn't say to me, you're just nuts. No, you can't do that. You've got to have like 3 months off for this. But no, I did that. And what a stupid thing to do. Cut the plaster off, raced in Canada. I could have crashed. It could have all come apart again. And then I'd have been bleeding to death on the floor of Chatsworth Motor Park, not Tesco's supermarket. Things that you do when you're young, eh?
Yeah. I remember I see the picture in the book of when you're at the back of the van trying to work out how you could cut around it, and then because you felt better with it on, didn't you? And then you put it back on. And
anybody who's ever had a limb in plaster, and I'm sure there's lots of people watching this tonight that have had things in plaster. You have it in plaster for a while, and you think, it's fixed, it's fine, it's great. Yeah, get the plaster off. As soon as you get the plaster off, it's like your arm just goes there. and I have a leg in plaster up to my thigh, and that was the same. I felt like an athlete with this plaster on. Get the plaster off, and it's like, oh no, you got no muscle, and it doesn't bend and everything. And so yeah, we somehow managed to cut the plaster off. I can't remember how. And then my arm felt really weak, and I also felt really quite concerned that, you know, I got this wound on my forearm that was only, you know, a few days old from surgery. Still got the stitches in it. Still got the stitches and the blood in it. And I'm thinking, if I fall on that, that's not good. So that's the main reason I think I put the plaster back on, just as an encasement, you know, as protection in case I do end up falling it and bashing it against a handlebar or something if I crash. So that's why I put it back on. And then it was difficult to ride, because try riding with it, you know, we cut the bit off that went over the thumb, but try riding with the plaster, you know, just down to your wrist, and it was hard. But how amazing that I've got photos of that. Just sort of diverting back to the book a bit now. The photos that I managed to source for that are just incredible, because I was able to illustrate every part of that sort of story. And so, you know, when it came time to write about my arm injury in '86, lo and behold, in my box of my own personal snaps, I've got a photo of me from Canada. I don't know who took it. It's just a little print, and I look at it. I think I scanned it and zoomed it up, because it was just a shot from me behind. And then I look at it and go, Christ, I've got my plaster in my hand and a hacksaw. That was me trying to modify my hacksaw before the race at the Canadian 500 GP. So yeah, just great that, you know, not only that I had those photos in my own personal collection, but I was able to get photos from Ray Archer as well that illustrated so many other parts of it, not just the racing, but stuff around the pits and that sort of thing. Yeah, really cool.
I just got Dan Merrifield has just said, hi Rob, tell us as much as possible about Namur, please, as I never went there, which is a big regret. I'll get the book at Farley.
That's a difficult thing to answer, Dan. You need to get the book you won't get the book at Farley, because I won't be at Farley. I'll be at Fox Hills, but I don't think I'll be at Farley. There's an entire chapter dedicated to Namur in my book, and it is something like 7,000 words or something. It's a ridiculously long chapter.
I'll do that part as well, by the way.
You know, so
pictures maybe.
If you wanted me to verbally describe about Namur, we'd be here for hours. So Dan, you really need to get a copy of the book. That'll tell you everything you ever needed to know. It's the first sort of description of what it was like to race at Namur, written by a rider. And that's something that I specifically wanted to do in the book, because Namur was just a magical place. It was the strangest, most unlikely place ever to hold a motocross event. It was in the middle of a city. None of this I realized till I went there the first time myself. It was in the middle of a city. There were nice luxury houses just on the side of the track. How they ever got permission to hold a race there in the first place, I don't know. It had that beautiful Roman looking Stade de Jeu behind the start. There were trees. It was an immensely long lap. It was over 3 minutes. It was very difficult to remember what it was like. So many corners looked the same. So many drops looked the same. We'd start up at the top of the hill, and it was just basically one big oval. You drop down the hill all the way to the bottom, and you've got that tarmac road at the bottom. I never realised before I went there you go, that we raced along the tarmac road. Somebody had told me there was a tarmac section there, but I thought that it was just, we crossed a road. I didn't think that we actually raced down it for 200 yards. And there's me and Eric Gabors. And at the end of that tarmac road, you jumped up onto that. That's a cobblestone road underneath that. And that's me, and I can't see who that's in front. Is that Dirk Goykins, maybe? And that was cobblestones. And we raced along that. And at the end of that was basically a castle wall. And we were going along there at 60 miles an hour, trying to brake on slippery, dust-covered cobblestones before turning right and then going back up a load of steps to the top again. So it was an absolutely unique track. It was an amazing atmosphere. I don't know how many people went there. There was always a big crowd there, but it was such a long lap that everybody was spread out. But, you know, all the way around the lap, there were people, and all the way around the lap, there were British fans. And as a British rider, we used to get more support there from the Brits than we ever did at a home GP. It seemed that once the British fans went overseas, then they were fervent supporters of British riders. Whereas at British Championship, there was not much of an atmosphere. But all those same British fans get them overseas, and they're like, "Yeah, come on, the Brits." So lots of British support there. It was only used once a year, so the dirt was always fresh. You know, it was kind of topsoil. The topsoil had never been worn off it, and because it was in a forest as well, and every year all those leaves falling, it's like the topsoil's getting topped up year by year, so the dirt was always prime. It was usually grippy, but it was just so exciting to race there. You know, this sounds a real sort of nerdy, fanny thing to do from my side, but I just couldn't wait to get out on that track. And I wanted to be the first rider out on that track. And so I would get my bike down to the Parc Fermé for practice like an hour before it started. An hour before the bikes were even allowed onto the track. Because there generally weren't, was there a support race? There might have been a support race, but you know, the GP practice would start at, I think, 11 a.m. on the Saturday. So I'd have my bike down there at 10 o'clock with my mechanic, because I wanted to be first out of that pit box, to go out on that fresh, virgin track that hadn't had a bike on it for 12 months. And you go down through the woods, you know, start to find the lines, and just lead the pack out there. And I can imagine that one of the big congregation points was down at the bottom by that Chalet de Monument, which was a bar that tarmac road section went alongside. So that's where Carlquist stopped for his beer in '88. So there's a lot of Brits there. And I can imagine if you were down there, you'd hear those bikes up on the hill. I mean, it was a long walk from there back up to the pits at the top. You know, good half, 3/4 mile walk. But you know what it's like with a motocross bike, a 500 in the woods. You just hear that thing barking. You know, and they were all like factory bikes and, you know, crisp 500s. There were no old banger bikes out there. You know, they're all crisp, sharp 500s. And you just hear them going bark, 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 through the woods at the top, and it'd be getting louder and louder and louder and louder. And then all of a sudden, bah, onto that tarmac road, wide open, back wheels, like putting rubber tracks down the tarmac, going past the bar where you're sat with beer in your hand. You've been waiting there all morning. That must have been amazing. Yeah. And I wanted to be that first rider that came down there.
Oh, well, that was good.
And that was just an awesome feeling. Of course, the next lap round, you're not the first rider anymore. But yeah, there was always a lot of support down there at the bar. Yeah, it was a great place. I just explained far more about Namur then than I was intending to. I was going to say, you've got to buy the book. Well, you do have to buy the book, but yeah, that's a little taster of what it was like to ride at Namur.
That was, like you said, there was a massive chapter on that, and that was really good. You go on, you literally describe all of it, so you definitely got to get that for sure. I was speaking to my buddy Adam Winslet, and he's we were talking about trying to get a few people together and maybe and go up there because I want to have a look around. Obviously, I've seen everything on the TV and all the coverage and all that, but I'd love to just have a walk around, just to see where it was.
I want to do the same thing. Now Can you give me 30 seconds?
Yeah.
Just go and make myself 2 minutes.
Yeah, no problem. No worries. You guys are legends. You've got loads of questions. I think I've been asking questions still from about what's that? Looking at the time. I'm still asking some of your guys questions from about 22 minutes past 7. We're 8:15. This is definitely going to be a part 2 interview because Rob gives us amazing details, which is what we want. I'm going to ask that when he comes back, Mr. Winslet. there's Adam we were just talking about. So yeah, that would be a quite good idea. While there's quite a few people online now, I'm sure there's a few people that'd like to do that. I did see the Dave King thing that he was with Forpy and they were walking around. I don't know if that was a year or so ago or whatever, when they were walking around with some cameras and stuff. But Adam was talking about getting a few people together and traveling over in the car. And it'd be good to go over there, you know, maybe stay somewhere for a night or two or whatever it is. And yeah, drive over there and have a walk around the old track and stuff. That'd be pretty cool. There he is.
Back. Quick nature break. Sorry about that.
Yeah, no problem at all.
When you get to my age, you need to go to the back a bit more frequently.
Adam's just put, how fast was Streatley Hills?
How fast was Streatley Hills? Yeah, that was one of the faster tracks. I think it was rocky. I don't think I ever went there thinking, wow, this is a really fast track. I think I raced faster tracks. But it was a bit sketchy because it was rocky. And we raced there, it was like a pre-season meeting. I remember doing that once and it was frozen as well, so that wasn't very nice. But I had a couple of good rides there at Streatley. But yeah, you know, what's a fast track? You know, back then the GPs used to have a speed limit. You know, speed limit. A track shouldn't average more than 30 miles an hour, 50 kilometers an hour. I think they've raised that now. And that was to keep, you know, speeds down for safety. But I remember Hawkstone always used to be kind of above that limit, particularly in qualification. You don't think of Hawkstone as being a particularly fast track. But the thing is with Hawkstone then, that there were no slow corners on it. So it was an average speed. So Hawkstone was always borderline on that FIM limit. Whereas you get other tracks that would have scary fast straights, but you throw in a couple of slow corners somewhere further around the lap and it brings the average speed down. Yeah, I never used to think of Hawkstone as a fast track. Yeah, Streatley was okay.
Right, let's have a look. We've got hundreds of questions here. Scott Mitchell, the darts player, the professional darts player, has just come on. I know he's a Paul Pirate Speedway fan as well. They call that a comfort break in darts. He's just necked a cider and come back.
Well, I did say I was going to make myself comfortable. So,
yeah.
Picked up that. I haven't necked a cider, not because I don't fancy a cider, but I did think I need to stay off the drinks tonight, or I'll be going to the bathroom too often.
Yeah. This is a good question as well. I saw that as well. Martin's put, Lee, asked Rob about the KX80 at Western Beach Race in '86. Why and how did that come about?
Another good question, Martin. So if people don't know, 1986, I rode a KX80 in the Western Beach Race. There it is. Look at that little thing there.
Beautiful.
Why? Because I'd ridden, that was 86. So Beach Race started in 83. In 83, I went in there hoping to win it. In 84, I went in there hoping to win it. And 85. But the thing is, with a beach race, there's so much luck that comes into it. You know, you can be the fastest rider there. You get the hole shot, you pull out a 30-second lead, you come around to the first corner on the second lap, and there's 500 people parked there. And so you can't get through. And so you end up trying to barge your way through to get over that first dune. And just about as you're about to, you know, be one of the riders to get over the dune, you see that the marshals knock their palings down to let everybody through because everybody's getting gassed to death in carbon monoxide poisoning. And so the guy that was in the 200th place is now in front of you. So it was just, it was too much down to circumstances like that. And so I thought going in to try and win it wasn't really worth it. So I just thought, let's go and have fun instead. How can I have fun? Why don't I ride an 80? So 86, I was riding for the factory Kawasaki team. So I spoke to Alec Wright and said, how about I ride an 80, Alec, just for fun? And he went, yeah, I like that idea. And so I got hold of that thing, which I think actually was Paul Malin's, maybe. Because Paul Malin was in the schoolboys then, so it might have been his. So he picked up that 80, standard 80, put my, or had a seat cover made up to fit it with my name on. And I rode that in the Western Beach Race. And I finished, I remember the result, I finished 32nd overall out of the 1,000 riders. I was, where was I? I was first 80, obviously. I was first in the 125 class. So I beat all the 125s. I was 6th in the 250 class and 32nd overall. And I remember hearing Alec talking to somebody at the NEC bike show after that, and saying to them that he was, of all his riders in that beach race, he was most pleased with his 80 result. But it was good fun. It was very light. It was absolutely mega around the. Have you ridden it, Lee? You ridden Western Beach Race, I presume?
No, I actually haven't. No.
You haven't? Okay.
No.
On the infield, you get the hard sand, the hard packed sand. There's some parts of it are softer, but some parts of it are hard packed sand. So halfway around the lap, you get some corners that just build up nice berms. God, that thing was fast around those corners. An 80 on some grippy sand and nicely bermed. So it's not soft, boggy stuff. Hard packed sand. That thing was an absolute missile around there. And I could see, because those loops go backwards and forward, I could see people watching me on one loop and then running across and watching me to come around the other one as well, because it was so fast through there. But it was rubbish on the dunes and the big bumps and that sort of thing. And obviously it was very slow down the straight. And also, because my legs were bent so much, I kept getting cramp as well. Got a lot of cramp in my legs. Because it was cramp.
Yeah.
But yeah, good fun.
Ben just put, thanks, Rob. I'll never forget the photo of you about to ride Albertine's Honda. Visibly looked nervous.
I don't know if I remember that photo. I remember riding Albertine's Honda. In fact, I met Greg Albertine a few years ago in America at a Supercross.
Did you?
Probably about 5-6 years ago. And Davey Coombs from Racer X, I'd met him, and he said, "Oh, we're just in this big motorhome." He went in there, and Greg was in there. And I said, "We have met before." He didn't remember me, but I said, "We have met before." And then lo and behold, on my phone, in my photos, I'd got the cover shot of DVR, me riding that bike. So a little chat, and a couple of minutes later, I go, "There, you remember that?" I said, "I rode your bike." I don't remember that photo there, Ben, me looking nervous. If I looked nervous, it wasn't because I was nervous, because I was never nervous before riding those factory bikes.
I've just seen another top man on here, Mr. Perry Leask.
Perry Leask, what a star Perry is. I've known Perry for a long time. A lovely. We used to do GPs together. Perry was up in the British Championship before me, and so when I was coming in out of the schoolboys and through the support championship, and I get my expert points up into the support, Perry was one of those guys that I looked up to. I remember him riding for Honda Britain. Great rider, and then we shared a few years crossing over in 500 GPs, and then he did a lot of French internationals, and sometimes we'd meet up with him. I think it's right, isn't it, Perry, that we bumped into you in a car park at the seaside at Cap d'Agde down in the south of France once. I don't know whether it was a GP or a French international, and Perry had been somewhere else, and then we just ended up going to the same car park and spent a few days there. But yeah, hard work testing your TC 630. Well, those 4-strokes back in the day were very different to how they are now. And we used to laugh at them a bit. But I did remember testing the 4-strokes, and it was quite surprising. So this was in the days of, say, old 4-strokes, before like the YZ 426 came out. Perry's sort of, Husky 500s, 600 cc 4-strokes. I remember riding them at Golding Barn, and actually they weren't as bad as I thought. They were pretty good. And I was really surprised at how smooth the power was, because those old bikes, the power never used to sound smooth. You'd sit in the pit box, and if Perry was there on his Husqvarna, he'd be like 5-6 yards in front of you in the pit box, and all of a sudden you'd get this like poof of exhaust. They just used to like throw out this this sort of big dollop of single dollop of exhaust that hit you in the face. And you think, yeah, that's coming off the 4-stroke, because the 2-strokes never did that. And so they always seemed to me like they got very lumpy, boom, 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 difficult to use power bands, but they didn't. The power was very smooth.
He's coming to the reunion. He can't unfortunately ride now. He's had a bit of surgery in the last couple of weeks ago, I think it was now, but he's going to still come down to the reunion, so there'll be a lot of reminiscing going on and all that in the beer tent, so that'd be good.
Good. It's always nice to see Perry. So get well soon, Perry, if you can.
Yep, good man. Be good to see him. This is from Jonas Haig. I think that's how you pronounce it. He's just put, "Hi Lee and Rob, long time no seeing, mate. Any good Hacken Colquist stories? And I forgot to ask, how come you rode with a JT ALS helmet when you rode Hondas?"
Hello, Jonas. Yes, I remember Jonas, Swedish friend of mine. Any good Håkan Carlqvist? Firstly, I believe you say it Håkan Carlqvist. Håkan. Like a hawk.
Oh, right, okay, Håkan. Yeah.
A Swede. Everybody says Haken or Harken.
Yeah, they do.
That little accent thing above the A is. Håkan Carlqvist stores. Well, we all know the beer one at Namur. I liked Håkan a lot. People said that he was a fearsome, scary guy with a vicious temper and so on. I never noticed that. I didn't know him that well. Our paths had crossed. I got to know him at French internationals and stuff. You might end up parking next to him, and he was a lovely guy. And his mechanic Jens was a lovely guy as well, and his wife was lovely. And he was always very helpful. I remember him welding a bracket on an exhaust pipe for me once, and he was just one of the boys. He was a good guy. I remember in between Sweden and Finland one year, we stopped at a ski jump in the car park at a ski jump. Because as I've written in the book, if you've not written the book, you may not realize this, but guys doing GPs back then, if you're on the road, you got one GP one weekend, one the next weekend. Where'd you go in the week? You go in between Sweden and Finland, you've got a week to, not just to kill, you've got a week in which you've got to prep your bike, clean your gear, get some training in, try and get some practicing in, and you haven't got a home to go to. So you've got to find somewhere to stop on the side of the road. And that particular week, we got a tip off from some of the other Scandinavian riders that they were all going to stop in this car park at a ski jump somewhere or other. And it was a nice big car park because you need somewhere where you can park up and you put the awning up and you're not going to get bothered by the police. So, you can't do it in the middle of a town centre somewhere. So that's where we stopped, and he was there. And I remember walking up just having a look at the ski jump. So we walked up the steps there. There was no snow there at that point. And it looked quite steep. And I remember both saying, "Do you reckon you could jump our bikes off there?" I don't know how you get them up there, but I remember that thought between us. Could we jump off there? We wouldn't have done that because we'd have got in trouble, I'm sure. But because I think Robbie Madison's already done that, hasn't he? Now actually jumped off the ski jump. But it's not as high as it looks. Well, it is high, but with the ski jump, the arc of the jumper, the slope is following that. So they're not like 100 feet off the ground at any one point. They're just following that slope, and so it's a nice soft landing. I think it'd be the same with the bike as well.
Eddie the Eagle there. Got Harry Ford's just said, "Can't wait to see him rip at Whiteway Barton. Can we get a copy?" I presume he means the book. A copy of the book at the Reunion 3. Would love to read the book.
Yes, I will be going down there. I'm not sure whether it's Saturday or Sunday yet. Probably the Saturday. I don't know. But yeah, I'll be going down there. I'll be bringing my awning down there, and I'll bring some books. So yeah, you're welcome to buy a copy down there, and I'll happily sign it, dedicate it to you, write whatever you want on there.
Beautiful. I've actually got a picture of you, a couple of pictures actually on here of you at Whiteway Barton. There you go.
Is that Whiteway Barton?
Yeah, it says 1988 Patrick Trophy Whiteway Barton on that one, so I don't know if it's right.
Yeah. I remember that. That was beginning of '88. I'd ridden Honda in '87. Kawasaki offered me a good deal in '88, before '88, and I went back to Kawasaki. And what patch quit would have been first week of March or something like that. That's what it usually was, wasn't it? And I didn't get a bike to ride from Kawasaki until about 2 weeks before that event. I don't know why. They told me that they didn't have any bikes, there weren't any new ones in the country, and so on. But so that 1988 season, I went into it like 2-3 months behind all of my competitors. I just couldn't ride all winter, had nothing to ride. It was the strangest thing for a
weird
supported team. And so when that photo was taken, I'd probably ridden 3 times prior to that first big meeting of the season.
Mad, isn't it? You wouldn't have thought. When I read a few things like that in the book, I was quite shocked. I was shocked at that one as well.
Yeah, me too. Yeah,
that's another Whiteway apparently.
Yeah. That's '89 on the Bike Sport Honda. Oh, and I didn't answer that question for Jonas, did I? Why have I got the helmet on?
Yeah.
Because so after '88 didn't work out with Kawasaki. And I'd had team clothing deals in the previous years. '86 was a team clothing deal, '87, '88. And '89, I spoke to Honda Britain, Honda UK, and did a deal with them. And I wanted to be free to be able to use whatever clothing I did. So I spoke to Yoko. I'd spoken to Yoko a couple of years before, probably beginning of '87, about doing a deal with them. But when I went with the Banks Honda thing, again, that was Honda Britain, but through John Banks, there was an Answer Products clothing deal that was tied to that, and so I couldn't do anything with Yoko. So '89, he was such a lovely guy, the guy from Yoko, Juha Tiranen, his name was. I just really wanted to work with him, and so I did a deal with Yoko, but obviously they didn't make helmets. But he made a lot of the stuff for JT, and so he knew John Gregory from JT. And I think I may have been at the Paris Supercross watching, but he put me in touch with John Gregory, and I said, "Can I get some helmets?" He said, "Yeah, sure." And so I got the helmets direct from JT in America. And when they first sent them over, what was really nice is they'd had the first batch of helmets that I had, they'd had them painted by Chris Opillard in France. And so just go back to that previous picture, Lee, if you can.
Which one was that?
That one, Whiteway Barton and me in the Yoko gear. Don't know whether you could, or any picture of me on that '89 Honda.
Yeah, I'm just having a look.
Those JT helmets, they've been painted by Chris Opillard. There, that paint job was just mega. And that wasn't me that had that painted. They came in from JT like that.
Oh, right, I see.
They're fantastic.
Very nice looking helmets.
And then I had a few other helmets later on in the season that weren't painted, and so I got Miles Carter to duplicate that Chris Opillard paint job. But yeah, love that gear. My favourite gear of all time. The helmets just looked fantastic. Probably weren't the most comfortable helmets to wear. I think an Arai is the most comfortable helmet. But they were great. They just looked fantastic, didn't they? Those JT helmets. They still do today. That to me looks better than any modern helmet. That's a later JT helmet, because all of my helmets, my race helmets, got given away to fans and charity and stuff. And then because I regretted that then. And so Rob Walters, Doc Wob, ended up somehow locating a load of new JT full face helmets like that. This is going back 15 odd years, I would think. So I said, I'll have one of those, Rob. So it was brand new in the box, never been worn, JT helmet. And then I got that paint job on, which is all right. Wasn't as good as that original '89 one. But I still got that helmet. And that's my '87 gear, which I've still got.
Nice. Yeah, I love the JT ones. I think I've spoke to my friend Dean Batchelor, who used to obviously race. He was a good rider. I think he loves all the JT. He's got loads of JT helmets as well. They're very cool. There's that picture as well.
That's it. That's when I beat Thorpe in that second.
Yeah, there you go. That's it.
Yeah, I text him that picture quite often. Now, what's nice about that? That's a Jack Bernicle shot. It was a gloomy, grey, wet, miserable day. But Jack's using fill-in flash there, and so that's why I'm nice and bright. And of course, I led that race for a long time, and then Kurt got me, and so I'm relatively clean. And David was behind me for the whole race, and he's absolutely filthy. So that creature from the Black Lagoon behind me, that's Thorpe, and that's me in front. But I should just say that, you know, I'm probably making far more of this than it meant a lot to me that day to get a good result in front of David. But hey, that guy won 3 world championships. He won't have cared much about that particular race there.
Yeah.
That one, that I'm not sure if I've seen that before. That's Ling, obviously, with all those houses in the background. That'd be 1990. Still on the Bike Sport Honda, still with Yoko gear, but unfortunately, an AGV helmet deal came along that year, which, with hindsight, I should have just stuck with the JT helmets. But
you weren't keen on that one.
Somebody weighs a bit of money in front of you, you end up with the wrong decision.
Yeah. Was that not comfortable, or was that you just didn't like the look of it? Or
I didn't like the look of it. It wasn't particularly comfortable. The peak was too long. Just wasn't a very nice helmet. We tried to make the best of a bad job by putting a paint job on it. That's a Brew in front of Mark Eastwood. That's 1990. Yeah, good track.
We're gonna have to talk about Brew, I think. That looked super cool track, by the way.
Brew's a great track, but there are dozens of tracks every bit as good as Brew in France. There's the infamous Brew double.
Tell us about that.
It's a shame there aren't better photos of it. I've got 2 or 3 photos of it, but it was a really awkward place to photograph, and so it doesn't really convey the real height of it and the real length of it. It was an uphill. It wasn't really, the first one wasn't really a jump. It was an uphill, short, steep uphill that went flat. Then there was a smaller jump, and then a larger jump coming out into the back part of the track. So because that first hill was really steep, you couldn't go too fast off it. You just go up in the air, what we call a sky shot. So if you went too fast, you just went up and then stopped with like no forward momentum and so on. So the best thing to do was to just shut off and kind of roll over the top a little bit, get the back wheel on the ground, and then drive forward. And then this intermediate jump in the middle, I think, was to slow people down so they couldn't hit that third jump, ski jump type thing, too fast. And I'd ridden at Brew a few times, and that section had been the same. And I'd always thought, God, wouldn't it be just insane if you could just hold it wide open up that first hill and land on the downside of that middle jump? But it was a long way away. And that first uphill was steep. It was a sky shot. So it was something. I described it in the book as it's the sort of jump that you imagine doing when you're going to sleep at night. And I'm sure we've all done it. I still do this now.
Yeah.
Imagine yourself going around the track. You think, imagine if I just hit that and just nailed it and went 100 feet in the air and landed it. It was like one of those. But all the times I'd raced there previously was at a French International, and that French International was always on Easter Monday. So we'd always ridden at Halstead, Wakes Colne. And then we'd finish Wakes Colne, we'd pack up, we'd have to drive through the night, catch the ferry, drive down to Brew, which was down by Le Mans somewhere. It was a fair hike, and we'd get there at like 5:30 in the morning after driving all night. So you'd had no sleep, no time to walk around the track. And so every time I'd ridden it, I'd never even thought about doing it. But when we went there in 1990, it was a GP. So we wouldn't have to drive through the night to get there. We'd be getting there at Thursday. We'd have plenty of time to walk around the track. And so I sort of sussed it out and thought, I wonder whether I can jump this. And when I walked the track, I just thought, no, it's nuts. It's nuts. It's the sort of thing that you think of when you're going to sleep. But it played on my mind a little bit. Is it possible? I wonder whether I could do it. And that middle jump was a little bit rounded. I don't know whether Perry was, if Perry's still online, well, I don't know whether Perry was at that race. He might be able to chip in. That middle jump was quite rounded. It wasn't like it was a nasty peaked thing. And so, you know, if I cased it, I thought, well, all that's going to happen is it's going to be a really heavy landing. It's not going to pitch me over the bars because I'll be landing with next to no speed because all I've done is gone up. So anyway, I'm waffling a bit. So practice comes along. I did the first couple laps of practice and just, you know, jumped it as normal. And then the next lap, I stopped right adjacent to that jump on the previous section of track. So that picture there, just to the right of that, I stopped adjacent to it and had a look. And again, it just looked too far, too high. It's a stupid thing to do. And so I completely dismissed the idea. And then I put my bike in gear and I rode off down the hill into the left-hand corner before it. Still not thinking about jumping it at all. And I carved around that little berm that had just started to form on the third or fourth lap of practice. And I came out of that corner and it'd been a good exit. And then literally in that very millisecond, something in my mind just said, oh, fuck it. Those were, I didn't say that. That was in my mind. Fuck it. And I just turned the throttle to the stop. I think with a situation like that, you can't think about it for too long. It's got to be a split-second decision. You think about it for too long, you'll bottle out. Like jumping off doing a bungee jump or something. I think if you do a bungee jump, you just got to go, oh, fuck it, jump. And so I turned the throttle to the stop and I just held it wide open and I just looked at that hill and it was I short shifted into third and then it was just in the meat of the power band in third and then I hit the bottom of that hill and the suspension compressed and I kind of sat into it to seat bounce it and get a little bit of clutch at the same time just to keep those revs in where it's going to get the maximum power and torque. And I remember hearing that, you could just hear the bike go, whoa. You know, when it's on the power, and then it hits that uphill, and the suspension compressing, and that note deepened, and I just held it on, and then it just took off and went up and up and up and up for what seemed like ages. And as soon as I took off, I was just concentrating on that middle jump. Because you couldn't see it from the takeoff. As soon as I was in the air, you're thinking, am I going to be short? Am I going to be long? You know, am I going to die? That's when you start thinking about that. You know, and this is happening. It's happening in a very short space of time, but it seems like it's in slow motion when you're up there. You know, you're floating up there, and you just, you know, the bike was in a good attitude. You know, in that photo there, it's just starting to rotate down now because I'd seat bounced it, so I'm sat as I'm hitting it. As it went up through the air, it's just starting to rotate. So that's where the front wheel's still a bit high. I'm just lifting my butt off the seat as I've taken off. The bike rotated through the air, and I was just watching that downslap, and I just nailed it perfectly. And it was a buttery smooth landing. And then I got a mega fast run at that third jump. You know, so it was like fast through that section. And I just thought, wow, what have I just done? That I couldn't believe that I'd been brave enough to do it. I couldn't believe how well it had turned out. How I just nailed it perfectly. And it was everything I'd got, mind. You know, I hit that as fast as I could. And I could have quite easily cased it. But like I say, if I'd have cased it, I just think it would have just been a really heavy landing. I'd never once thought that I was in danger of crashing by doing that. I'd have broke my ankles or something, I don't know. And so I went off around the track and then stopped on the valley opposite and stopped and had a look and thought, I wonder if anybody else is doing it. And no, they weren't doing it. And so I then carried on, and then the next lap I did it. And by this point, then there's a crowd there, because the first time there was like no noise from the crowd.
Yeah.
Nobody ever jumped that, and nobody was ever expecting anybody to jump it.
Yeah.
And if I move over that way, I'll still still in shot now. But the second time I did it, then people were like egging me on. So, you know, up in the air, and then they didn't have air horns then, just people cheering, but you know, people were loving it. And so I did it a couple of times, and then thought, I'll try and keep it a secret. But something like that, you can't keep a secret. And so as soon as I got back after practice, then people were coming up to me and saying, you know, what about this jump then? Kurt Nichol came up and said, what about this jump? And I said, what jump? But my lie wasn't very convincing. And then that photo there, you can see on the hillside there,
yeah,
guy in the red is Jeff Leask. So this is during qualification. During qualification, you can't hide your secret trick. So I was jumping in qualification, but there was a whole bunch of riders. Kurt was there, Thorpe was there, Jeff Leask. They'd all come up and stood on that bank there to see me do it. But nobody else did it.
Did Thorpe say anything to you? Did you said Kurt come and asked you about it? Did anyone else ask you about it, the riders?
Kurt literally came up and just said in his dry sort of wit, tell me about the jump then, Rob. And I said in my dry reply, what jump, Kurt?
Yeah.
That was it. I don't think I ever spoke to Thorpe. Thorpe wouldn't have done it. Kurt wouldn't have. Thorpe tried it once. No, credit where it's due. I heard, maybe he told me that he tried it the next day, but you've got to nail that thing to get over it. And so what they did is they tried to jump, but they weren't hitting it hard enough. You've got to hit that thing wide open, seat bouncing on a 500 Honda to get over it. And I think if I'd have jumped that the same speed and didn't seat bounce it, I don't think I would have got over it.
No.
And so I don't know whether those guys knew how to seat bounce back then. I don't know. But Thorpe did try it, but he cased it, and then that was it. And that was it. Nobody else did it.
Mad. Had some balls to do that, Rob.
I remember going down to qualification on a Saturday afternoon, and Mervyn was in the pit box next to me.
Yeah.
He was in front of me. I used to like to get down to the pit box first for qualification to get a clear run, clear track. Mervyn had beat me down because he had the same idea. And I said to him, Merv, I said, look, I know you're in front of me, but I'm jumping that double, right? So, you know, it'd be good if you'd let me go or something. I'm jumping that double. And he just said, what double? I said, you know, down there. No, but no double down there, he said. He didn't even know what I was referring to.
Yeah.
There was no double jump on that track.
Yeah.
Because I didn't want to jump it with Merv in front because, you know,
I don't know where he's going to be in his landing.
It was dangerous.
Yeah. Mad. Fair play. That is absolutely mad. Right, so I've just had a message off of Alex Hartley here. I just spotted his thing. He said, PM you a picture, Lee, for Rob. So I've just got it up on my phone, so I'm going to see if you can see it. It asks you if you remember this. But,
That is going to be at a Brian Wade training camp at North Summercoats in 1984, I would guess. That's Dave Watson on a Kawasaki with a Rockall top. That's me with a Fox gear on a 490 Yamaha. And Tony Wright is the guy on the right on a Suzuki. Brian Wade used to hold his British motocross racing school training schools at various places, including Hawkstone. He also had this track up at Louth, and that was Tony Wright's own track. He lived in this house with his parents, and right across the road, they lived on the coast, just right across the road from it. It's a little side road. He got a track in the dunes, and it was, as you can imagine, dune sand was just the softest stuff, but it was a brilliant place. Other than it being a long drive for us, it was a brilliant place to hold training schools because it could rain all day long there, and you never get a puddle. And Dave Watson used to come up and help us demonstrate once in a while, and I was doing the riding demos for Wadey for a while until kind of my GP commitments kind of got in the way as I got better. But what was interesting, Dave, so that year, 84, I'd just gone into 250 GPs. I just started contesting my first GPs that year, 84. Dave Watson, obviously, awesome GP rider, done 250 GPs. He was in 500s then on a Kawasaki. And David, was British champion in 87. He'd finished, I think, 4th in the World Championship in earlier 80s. Top rider, I was a decent rider. Tony Wright and blow us all the way around there. And he was, he wasn't a British Championship rider. He maybe did the occasional support championship, but round his own track in that sand, he was just mega. As you might expect, living opposite the track. And he never raced it. He got track on his doorstep, never rode it. He's bored of riding around there. But when we'd come up, he'd just blitz us. Yeah, a nice guy.
Brilliant. I've just got who's this? Got loads of questions, absolutely loads of them. So we're definitely going to be another part as well. Travis Heidi has put, "Hi Rob, out of the lots of privateer riders back in the day, riding in GPs, etc., that didn't have much backing, i.e., money, stroke sponsorship, which riders do you think could have stepped up to the next level if they had the money and a bit of backing?"
That's a good question, Travis. My first thought in that question is that I wonder how much money doesn't make you faster. I don't know how important the money was back then. Now, I need to qualify that because, you needed to have, if you didn't have your parents' backing or something, you couldn't ride a 5-year-old bike and expect to ride in GPs. You had to have the money to get to the races and so on. But, having like 5 bikes and motorhomes and all of that stuff didn't make you any faster. Doesn't make you any faster today. So I think what I'm trying to say is that money's not the reason why a lot of people don't get to where they want to get to in motocross. But a lot of people think that it is. Hard work, determination, talent, those things count for far more than money does. However, you need to have a certain level of backing to even to be able to get to the races. I acknowledge that. And I was fortunate in that, my parents weren't especially wealthy. My dad owned a small business. I was very fortunate that when I left schoolboys, he continued to buy bikes for me for a while when I was in the support championship, and then when I finally got into British championships, then it became self-financing, and then I was away. So I was fortunate to have backing from my parents in that respect. But to get back to the point of his question, what riders could have done better if they got a bit more backing? I don't know if I can really answer that. I can't think of anybody that would have done better had they have had more money behind them. You weren't able to buy factory bikes. You could buy yourself, a Mugen kit for your Honda or something, but I really wonder whether that would make a difference. Back then it just seemed to be, it was down to rider ability more than money. It's different these days because you've got to have the money to even get into GPs. 300 euros for a wild card, 200 grand to buy yourself into a team, and that it's a different situation these days. But it wasn't like that back then. If you got enough money to be able to get yourself a van and a couple of bikes and get yourself to the races, then you could compete. And we were winning prize money, which I won't say that prize money covered all the costs of that. It didn't in Britain. It was better when you got it overseas, but it was a help. But money wasn't the answer. So I can't think of anybody specifically that would have benefited from having more backing. I might think of somebody later. I don't know.
Just going back, I just want to quote Adrian Jessup here. He just put, I did get the book and read the more chapter. Unreal, it's like you are there. Such a magical and balmy place to go. I walked the track and how they rode up down the hills was amazing. So he reiterates about you need to get the book to read all that, because it was an amazing chapter on that for sure.
Hello, Adrian. Thanks for the comment. I'm pleased you like the book.
AD Porter, ask Rob about the skiing holidays. Laugh out loud.
AD Porter, that's not his proper name. His name is Shades. Now, AD Porter is Aids the Shades. He was one of many Russ Jarman mechanics. Russ was on a few weeks ago. Excellent interview, by the way. Russ had a whole bunch of mechanics. Every one of them had silly nicknames. There was Maverick, there was Shades, there was Mooey. Nobody went by the real name. Shades is a lovely bloke, and we all went skiing back in the mid 80s, I suppose it was. I'd never been skiing before, but all of those guys from down, where were they? They were sort of Reading, Bracknell way. So there was Paul Hunt, there was Russ Jarman, all his mechanics and so on. And they go on a skiing trip. And they invited me along on this skiing trip. I've never skied before, but it sounded fun. And so I went along with them. I think I went to the dry slope once before I went. And then we went to wherever it was, Verbier or something. With my friends that are taking me on a skiing holiday. So my friends then said, right, come on. So we went on the beginner slope. This is like my second time on skis, and we slithered down the beginner slope, and they said, yeah, right, okay, now to the top of the mountain. And so they just took me straight to the top of the mountain, to like the black runs, my so-called friends. And that was it. That was my introduction to skiing, with a load of batshit crazy motocross guys who all could ski, and I couldn't. And I've just been deposited at the top of the mountain. And if I wanted to get down, then I needed to learn how to ski. And so that's how I learned how to ski properly in the deep end. And it's taught me how to ski very quickly. But those were just amazing holidays. They sort of expanded a bit. Other people came. Jeremy Watley came along once as well. And then a few others. It got bigger and bigger. And then one year we went in my motocross van as well. So we drove there rather than flying because it was a bit cheaper. But it was just nuts. We'd go to the top of a mountain, and normally you'd catch a chairlift up, and then you'd take that run down, and it'd take you, say, 3 to 5 minutes to get to the bottom again. We'd be up there. We'd be over an hour doing this run, because all the way up on the chairlift, people would be going, look, see, there's a jump there, over to the side. Look, there's another one there. And if we go down there, around that bit, there's a massive jump there. So we're just spotting all the jumps. And so we wouldn't ski on the piste. We just ski down to these jumps. And then one of us would go down and check it out. These are all off piste. There's a lot of snow when we'd gone there. So one person would sacrifice himself and go down and actually check it out, make sure it wasn't just an ugly boulder that we were going to crash into. And then he'd go over and go, yeah, it's good. And so that's it. So then another person would go down. Somebody at the bottom of the camera. And so the second person would go down and say, yeah, it's good. Go higher up. You need to come faster. So we'd all start sidestepping back up the hill to get more and more of a run at it. Until we'd just be going down there. And we'd never done it before. This is the first time each of us had gone over this jump. But the last person had ended up like getting a 200-yard run at it and going down there flat out with all his friends going, yeah, it's fine. He'd jump, and he'd be jumping like 30 meters through the air, crashing and burning the other side. But it was all lovely soft snow. It was just so much fun. But I guess that's what motocross riders are going to do.
Yeah, it sounds like a good time.
No, it was good fun. And that was the first time. That's first skiing holiday. That was the first time I can ever remember, since I discovered motocross, going to sleep at night and not thinking about motocross. Usually I'd go to sleep at night and all I think about is going around a track. But that was the first time all I thought about was actually skiing that day. Really good fun.
Was that good fun? Brilliant. I got so this is a good Where's it? No, I've got to go back to this question I've just seen. There we go. Martin, he just put, Rob, what was the best Grand Prix for start money or prize money for getting points?
Best free for start money. Well, they're all the same. It was a flat rate for all the GPs. So it went up a little bit every year during my career. So each year they'd have an inflationary increase, but you didn't get more money at the British Grand Prix compared to. Oh no, that's not strictly true actually, because back in the day you'd have camel races. So the FIM prize money, the standard prize money, and the start money was always the same at all of the GPs.
Yeah.
So you'd get so much for. I can't remember the numbers now. I'd have to look up the numbers in my book. You get so much for start money, and then you get so much for prize money for each motor. But at camel races, if you wore the camel bib, then there'd be extra money for that. So I never knew what the sort of the payback was. But if it was a camel race and you'd worn the bib, you get a bit of extra cash in the envelope. I can't remember how much it was though. So yeah, camel races paid more than normal races.
Interesting. No,
But GPs didn't pay as much as French internationals though. French internationals, you could earn more money at French international than a GP.
Oh yeah, I saw you write that in the book. Is that?
Yeah.
So they were always obviously something that all the riders wanted to do. Obviously, it was a good little.
Well, all the organisers wanted to do it. You know, the organisers were obviously making money. Where did that money come from? Sponsorship, spectators, but they paid good start money and good prize money for all of the competitors. Whereas as a GP, it was less. And I suppose we probably thought, we're probably getting ripped off a bit at the GPs. They could afford to pay more, but they don't because they would generally get better spectators at a GP than a French international. But somehow the figures worked for the French internationals because they carried on doing it for a long time. I'm not sure why they totally stopped in the end. I think it was something to do with tax, because all of this money was paid out to riders in cash and stuff, and so I think probably the French Inland Revenue started looking at it and saying somebody should be paying tax on this. But I don't know if that's true.
Yeah. Well, I've got Lawrence here, former Speedway man. He's put hi Lee and hi Rob. Yes, indeed. As a schoolboy motocrosser, I remember waiting in the woods in anticipation of the first of you guys to grace the track in practice on the big crackling 500s at those British GPs of Farley and Hawkstone. Which one did you prefer, Farley and Hawkstone? And I always like your input on Vital MX, by the way, even though it's hard work on there.
Well, last sentence, enough said about that. That's motocross and message boards, isn't it? Farley or Hawkstone for the GP? Probably Farley, because Hawkstone was sand, and as I said earlier, I didn't get to practice enough in sand really. There weren't too many sand tracks for us to practice in. And so I always found Hawkstone a bit hard work. Farley seemed to have a better atmosphere. The terrain suited us. That's the sort of, Farley's the sort of dirt that I grew up racing on in schoolboys. That sort of Gloucestershire, Wiltshire, tacky topsoils, grassy circuits is what I learned to ride on. And so I preferred those. And that would have been more difficult perhaps for an Italian who wouldn't have ridden on that sort of dirt, or a Dutch or Belgian rider. That one's Farley, isn't it? Yeah, I mean, look at that. That's just loamy, grassy stuff.
Yeah.
And we, British riders, we got a better feel for where the traction was on a circuit like that compared to others. So that's why I preferred Farley. And when I first got into motocross, I used to go to Farley to watch the GP there. I remember going, what would it be? Probably, I don't know, 1979, 80. First watched a GP at Farley. And so, always used to have good atmosphere and a good crowd. I used to look forward to British GPs, but they were always, it was nice because there was a lot of support there. And you'd see a lot of people that you knew. because all of your old friends and your schoolboy competitors, all the people you know, they'd all go to the GP. That's the highlight of the year for them. And I would have loved to have talked to all of those people, but you haven't got time to talk to everybody. And so it was kind of frustrating at the same time that you don't get a chance to speak to those friends that have come to see you. But yeah, Farley rather than Hawkstone.
It's a bit wet at Hawkstone there.
Not Hawkstone, that's Matcham's Park.
Oh, it's at Matcham's, is it?
That's the one we were talking about earlier with Thorpe behind me.
Yeah, it's quite wet, isn't it? Off the start.
But look how different the gates are dropping. That's the first gates aren't dropping very.
Not the T-bar ones.
The T-bars, yeah. And also, don't we? You need to look at that picture a bit closer. You can see that none of us are actually starting behind a gate. We're all starting in between a gate.
Oh yeah.
See,
literally,
big gaps are between the gates, and so you just line up in between. Not that we're, nobody's cheating. The gate's gone. Then I've got a good start there. I've got a good jump, but just that kind of eliminates the chance of your front wheel just catching it and stopping the gate going down. Not entirely legal though, but if nobody stops you, then you still do it.
Do that. That's just brilliant when I just zoomed in on that then. I was like, oh yeah. I've got David Campbell. Hi, David.
David. Hello, David.
Hi, Rob. I just had a thought. How many of us have ridden under the bike sport banner over the years in the British Championships and the GPs from one of your pictures?
Yeah, bike sport. They were kind of an odd sponsor for me because they were right up in the north. They were nowhere near. It wasn't a local shop for me. Bike sport were in Newcastle, but it was really a Honda Britain deal. Bikes came from Honda. I think Gavin probably paid for one of the bikes. I don't know. Honda at that point, rather than having a Honda Britain team, they decided to promote certain dealers as well. So that's why 87 you had the John Banks Honda team, and then you've got the Bike Sport team. And Gavin Linscott from Bike Sport, who was a lovely man, he was a big 500 GP fan. He would go and watch a lot of the races, and so he was just into 500 GP. So he was ever so pleased to have a 500 GP rider riding under the Bike Sport name. And Jared Smith had done it prior to going to his Colin Reid team. Gavin was an avid supporter of the sport, from his little shop up in Newcastle.
Didn't I think Anstey rode there as well, didn't he? I'm sure he did. Didn't Anstey ride there?
Yeah, that might have been the same thing. Was that after me? That's probably after I retired.
Yeah, I think it was into the 90s. So yeah.
Yeah, in the 90s, and so that would have been the same thing. Honda would have been helping and saying, right, well, you're going to be under the Bike Sport banner.
Yes.
But I'm sure that his bikes came from Honda as well.
Just looking at Nick's nurse has just said, fantastic interview, guys. If possible, can we all have a thought for the sad loss of Chris Witts at the end of the interview? Rob would probably remember him.
Oh, let's say something now. I posted something on my Facebook this week because I just came across a post from Chris's sister, Karen. I remember Chris very well. I've not seen him since the schoolboys, but I know that Karen was on Facebook, and I remembered him fondly. And if you don't know who Chris Witts was, he was a real star of schoolboy sport back in the 70s. Very fast, very talented, won lots of club championships in the Severn Valley and Cotswold clubs. But the key thing about Chris is that the guy was born deaf, so he had no hearing whatsoever. He was deaf and dumb. And so he rode just on the vibrations that he felt through the bike. And so I remember hearing this as a schoolboy and was just blown away. How's that kid riding when he can't hear the engine? How does he know when to change gear? And so he does it by the vibrations. So just riding a bike like that, bad enough. But that boy, absolutely ripped. He was, one of the fastest schoolboys in the country. Lovely kid. Went on to be a very successful darts player as well in adult life. And so it's very sad to hear of Chris's passing last week.
Yeah. Rest in peace to that man. Right, I've got Mike Hewlett here has just put, what an absolutely great and interesting interview. I remember when Rob came to one of the pre-85 presentation nights, he had everyone on the edge of their seats. So interesting. When is Rob going to get together with the rest of the best from the 80s and make the modern GP scene? Listen to them regarding tracks and get the crowds back. Probably won't happen, but it wouldn't be good if it did. It would be good if it did.
People don't know. I've tried my hardest to try and get Giuseppe Luongo to see things a little bit different. I've had 2 or 3 meetings with Giuseppe Luongo in his motorhome at Matterley to talk to him about my thoughts of various things. But you've got to remember that it's a business for Giuseppe. And a business's main priority is to earn money. You have to understand that. I don't agree with everything that he does. And I tried to explain to him that I think you can do things a little bit differently that would result in better things for the sport and actually make your product more profitable at the same time. You know, if the racing was better and more exciting, and hence that brought in more spectators and more TV viewers as a result, then he will benefit and make more money. And that was the case that I was trying to make to him, that I think that some of his decisions actually adversely affect him. You know, if the racing is crap and there's not enough riders, nobody watches it. What's the net result of that to Giuseppe? He's not going to make as much money. I would love to see the product be more successful. Changes have, you know, things change. We can't go back to pay earn. The trucks are big. The bikes are what they are. Motocross has moved on. We can't just go back to the olden days. If you just moved everything and put a GP at Farley next week, a modern GP, it wouldn't be any better. That's not the problem. But I think there would, if they would listen to me and others, there are changes I think we could make to the sport that would make it better, and that would be better for him. And we've got to make it better for everybody. It's got to be better for Luongo. Luongo's got to make money, or in front or whatever, the N-Sport, whatever they're called these days. They've got to make money too. But I think there's things that we could do that would make the sport better and would result in more profit for them. However, I've tried, guys, and he didn't really want to listen. 10 years ago, I suggested to him making an EMX 450 class, which they did have a go at a few years ago. I suggested to him that he drop, because you've got these officially approved teams that pay $10,000 a year for entry fees for the season, and then you add wild cards, you know, additional riders, and there are 21 officially approved teams in MXGP, and they're all paying 10 grand a year in entry fees. And over that, people could enter as a wild card, but it was €1,000, and you don't win any prize money, as you know. And so I'd said to him, why don't you make wild cards cheaper? I think I even said to him, make them €300, and that's going to attract more wild cards. You'll have more than 40 riders, in addition to the guys you've already got the money from, the officially approved riders. You're actually going to make more money, and you have more riders on the start line. Everybody's happy. And you can take some of that money that you make from the wild cards, and you can do a small prize money structure for the privateers. So the officially approved riders, the factory riders don't get prize money, but the wild card get some of that as payback. That's what I put to him 10 years ago, and I ran the numbers for him and said, you actually end up making more money. And it kind of fell on deaf ears until this year, when he's come up with the same idea himself, amazingly. So good that we've now got cheaper entries for wildcard. Yeah, it's rubbish that there's no prize money anymore, but it is what it is. And if you're Jeffrey Hurlings and you're getting paid several million a year, then I think, 50 grand in prize money, you're not really bothered about that, if that's what it would amount to.
No.
It's a shame for riders further down the field, and it's a shame for riders that are paying vast sums of money for the right to be in a team to get on the start line. Why can't you just have your own van and just go there like we used to? That whole concept of paying hundreds of thousands for a ride in a team, that doesn't make any sense to me. But it kind of is what it is. There's only so much we can do, and I've tried my hardest.
Shame in that. Hopefully, I've got Andy Obbs here, my fellow Swindon friend. He's the Western Gorilla. That everyone knows, the Western Gorilla on the quad that there was. This is the man.
I haven't been down to Western for a very long time, but you're painting a nice picture for me, Lee. He looks like a very nice man.
Yeah, he was on the front of the TMX once, doing the wheelie on the quad at Western, I think, as well. Once that was pretty cool. But he's just he was a great rider. The book he wrote is very professional. A man who knows how to promote himself. Great businessman. Total respect. I've been just feet away from him, but never spoke. Well done, Rob, for all your success.
Oh, well, thank you very much. I try my best. And if you're a few feet away from me, then if you were dressed as a gorilla, and maybe that's why we didn't speak. But if you're a few feet away from me in the future and you're not dressed as a gorilla, then please say hello, Andy.
You need to try and get on his boat, Rob. He's got a very, very nice boat. Yeah, he had Ricky Johnson and Thorpe on it after Fox Hill Vets.
Thorpe told me that was his boat. Have a word about that.
I know that Andy's had a few cool guests on there. I think Doug DeBark and a few of them guys have all been on there and stuff like that. You have to get down there. Andy, we
got time for another 2-minute comfort break, and I need a glass of water.
Yeah, you go for it, mate. Go for it.
I'll be as quick as I can.
No problem. By the way, guys, I've literally got hundreds of questions here. Sorry if I've missed any of your questions, but obviously I'm listening to Rob, trying to check your questions, and there's hundreds. I was like about an hour and a half behind the questions, so I've been trying to sort of just go down and trying to grab a few here and there. So sorry if I've missed any of your questions. We'll definitely be doing a part 2 because I've not even said any of my own questions. But I'm trying to get your questions in, so I'm doing my best. But if you could see what I'm seeing, literally to do that like refresh and it goes boom for like another 20, and I'm like, shit. Yeah, of course I'm still going, Ben. It's a marathon, not a sprint. I'm sure we'll be going till about 10 o'clock at Svet. Then I'll go and get some tea. Try and come down, which is always a nightmare at night time. Yeah, very cool, Pat. 100%. I need to ask any of your questions. Have I asked any of your questions yet, Pat? Let me have a look. Jeez. Honestly, trust me, there's hundreds of questions here in these comments. Mental. Which is really cool, by the way. I'm not complaining about that. Trying to look, see if I've got one I can see of Pat. That was right at the start, wasn't it? Pat. Did see that question I saw that you asked on Twitter earlier that I needed to get in. Here we go. I'll do that one. I'll do this one, Pat.
We're back.
I've just been telling them all we'll definitely have to do a part 2. I said hopefully Rob will be able to go to about 10 or something, and then I said literally there's hundreds and hundreds of questions in these comments. I didn't even ask one of mine.
It could be a weekly thing.
I know. I'm just going through the fans' questions, so I'm doing the best I can with these guys' questions. So Pat's got a question. What's that?
Wednesday night with Rob.
Yeah.
It'll be a regular thing.
Which event do you feel us fans missed out on due to circumstances? Example, USA No More MX Donations 01, a sunny Foxhill for MX Donations 98, RJ to the 500 GPs. Rob's even mentioned David Bailey was going to do a year in the GPs. Obviously, if everything had worked out right. What was that? James Stewart not injured in the 05 Supercross. Everybody on a two-stroke outdoors 05. Which events do you feel us fans missed out on due to circumstances? Ooh.
That's a complicated question.
It is, isn't it? He's thought about that for a while, hasn't he?
I'm not sure if I understand it. The USA racing at Namur would have been awesome. A sunny Foxhill MXDN 98. Still, Foxhill 98 in the mud was still awesome, though. Just getting to watch Everts.
I know.
Put on that clinic. I mean, I was very fortunate in that Dave Watson was running race spec. Can you put that caption back up, Lee, so I can continue?
Oh, sorry, mate. Yeah, no problem.
Dave Watson used to run race spec, and they had a tent. So I was watching that from the comfort of inside a tent on the top of the hill.
Oh, was it?
Yeah, but that was awesome. RJ to 500 GPs. Was he ever going to do 500 GPs? I don't know. I know David Bailey said to me that he wanted to do that. Two moto format instead of, going to one motor, that was a stupid idea.
Yeah.
That was down to Luongo. I know it was Dorner, but Luongo was behind that.
That one didn't like that.
We had three motors as well, didn't we? They went one motor, and then they had three motors. I mean, make your mind up. James Stewart 259 not injured in 05 Supercross. To be honest, I'm not that bothered by Supercross, if I'm honest. Everybody on a two-stroke outdoors in 05. It'd be nice for everybody on a two-stroke right now, wouldn't it?
Yeah.
But again, it is what it is. Things move on. Things evolve. Four strokes came along. I remember going to Glen Helen. Talk about dirt bike rider testing. This was a cool trip. Got flown all the way to California for the launch of the new 254 stroke Yamaha. The YZ 400 had come out. Yep. Whenever that was, 98-ish, something like that. 98, 99. Tested those. Nobody ever thought they'd make a 254 stroke. Because you had that 400 come along, which was, prior to that, you got 600 four strokes, but Yamaha built a 400 four stroke that was supposed to be eligible to compete against 250s. But I don't think anybody ever thought, next, the logical step is to build a 254 stroke that's going to be competitive against 125s. But Yamaha did. And I rode that at Glen Helen in California. And I remember thinking, just doing starts on it, it'd easily pull second gear starts, whereas a 125 wouldn't. And I remember thinking that the 125's days are numbered. Peak horsepower was about the same. But on a horsepower graph, it's not like the top figure that you need to look at. It's the area under the curve. And a 254 stroke just had a ton more mid-range compared to a 125, even though the peak horsepower figures were very similar. And that was a game changer. But the most interesting thing that came out of that test for me is that Doug Dubach was there. And I knew Doug. I've known Doug Dubach for years and years and years. First met him racing French internationals in the late 80s. He was coming over to Europe then. I mean, the guy's here more than he is back there. Seemed to run into Doug all the time. But he had been doing Yamaha's testing for them. And I said, where have you tested this 250 then? Because nobody knew this was coming. It was like a real, out of left field, boom, shit, it's a 250. It's going to go in the 125 class. Where have you been testing this? He said, I tested it at Glen Helen. I said, well, how did you keep it secret? He said, I put 400 stickers on the side of it. So he was testing the pre-production 250 Yamaha for months and months and months, racing every week at Glen Helen, and just put 450 graphics on it. Nobody knew.
Wow.
250.
That's cool.
Isn't that an interesting story?
Is it? That's mad.
Yeah.
Bloody hell. Look at this as well.
Oh, please.
I used to love all the advert ones. There's some of the cool ones, weren't there? The Americans as well. They're all cool.
Is this after the watershed or what?
Yeah, it's after 9.
That was a Sinisalo shoot. So this would be 85.
Yeah.
85. I did a deal with Sinisalo. And then I think I probably had the gear deal before I had a bike. And then I had a deal with, and then I got to ride Makos for Bill Brown. And I said, well, I've already got a Sinisalo gear deal on it. And he said, oh, okay. And then after a while, he started putting pressure on me to use his Wolf gear. And so I had to, rather embarrassingly, say to Sinisalo, look, do you mind awfully if we kind of cancel this deal? And they were very good about it. They understood. But that blue Sinisalo gear that I've got on there, I think that looks fantastic. And so we were invited along to wherever it was, somewhere in the Midlands, for this little photo shoot. And Roger Harvey was there, I think. Yeah, he must have been there, because Roger told me the story that model there, she was going to wear that chest protector topless, apparently. She's going to be topless and have that chest protector on.
Oh, yeah.
But, you know, inside of those chest protectors, you got the venting slots, and so you got the plastic, got the foam behind, and those horizontal oblong vent slots at the back were, let's say there's a bit of snaggage. Something was getting snagged on the slots on the inside of there, and so she had to put,
we get what you're saying.
It's I look back at that now and think, it looks a bit cringy, but hey, it's what we did. It's nice to be asked, if I'm honest. Nice to be asked. I did an Answer Products photo shoot as well when we went over in '87 and raced the Gold State Series. So I was in an Answer video, and that was very different. That was in Hollywood at a proper photo studio, and they had a makeup artist and everything. So it was very professionally done. And then we had to wear the jerseys, because being a European, we'd have extra large jerseys and we put it over the chest guard. I didn't like that at all. No. And so I was very slim and fit at that time, and so they took a load of gear down there, and it was like a really skinny shirt. But they also got bulldog clips. So they pulled the shirt round at the back and then put clips behind it to make sure that it was all body hugging, for all of the guys. The guys I was with, I was the only rider there. The other guys were all professional, models, I suppose you call them, for that Answer Products one.
So Ben Rumbold and Pat Stott both come back and says yes. Ben's put yes. RJ was looking at doing 500 GPs at the end of his career. Would have been 93 if he'd not got hurt. Pat said, yeah, RJ was going to race the 500 GPs to end his career until his wrist issue, which would have been epic. I've got a picture of you with him, actually. There you go.
Me and Rick. Yeah, that was at Apex in '89, and that was my local practice track, run by a guy called Tim Matthews, who sadly passed away a couple of months back. And so I used to practice up there all the time, and that was hard pack and jumpy, and so I got quite good at hard pack and jumpy stuff. And I went there, and lo and behold, there was a training school going on with Rick Johnson running it. And so I'd never met Rick, and it was slightly annoying for me because I wanted to go there and practice, and he was holding training school, so I had to not ride when I could only ride when he'd set his riders off to go around laps of the track. But he was a nice guy. He came up and spoke to me, and I said, I'm trying to keep out of your way, and he said that's fine. So he was good. And if I see him these days, I show him that picture and say, do you remember this? But he does know. I've met Rick quite a few times now, so he says he remembers that photo.
Did you speak to him did you get to speak to him at Fox Hill when he was there?
Yeah, I spoke to him at Fox Hills. Yeah.
Nice guy. I spoke to him.
Yeah. And there again, that's that Ace Yoko kit. Doesn't that look good?
Mm. Do you like that? I quite liked that answer gear that you had as well.
Yeah, the is good. Yeah, I've still got that set, or one set of that.
I remember them elbow ones as well, the old elbow.
Those aren't Answer Products elbow protectors. Those,
No, no, I remember them.
I
The
don't know whose
elbow.
those are, but I always used to wear a lot of protective gear. I was watching the GP, the guys on the start line of the GP on Sunday,
Yeah.
Switzerland. You know, and that's a rocky track, and they're there in like what looks like just a jersey. I think the FIM has some sort of rule now that you have to have like body protection, don't you? Well, it must be wafer thin because it doesn't look like they're wearing any. But I always used to. I'd fallen off and skinned my elbows on more than a few occasions, and so it bloody hurts.
Mm.
So I used to wear elbow protectors because they may be a bit uncomfortable, and shoulder pads might be a bit uncomfortable, but it's not as uncomfortable as gouging a big hole in your elbow. That a picture that I remember scanning that. Somebody gave me that. That's from a Swedish newspaper. I don't know what it says. It probably says Rob Andrews number 47 leads Håkan Karlqvist number 8. That will be the 500 GP at Sittendorf in 1987. And yeah, that was a press cutting that somebody gave me from a Swedish newspaper.
I like the look of that.
Always nice to have a picture in front of Karlqvist.
Yeah. That was me asking you if you seen Ricky, and I just realised I had a photo of you all together.
Yeah. You know, and I look at these pictures and I think I'm just a motocross fan. I was a kid that discovered motocross, and I bought a bike and I raced school with motocross, and I was so excited to be racing motocross, and I never expected to get any good at it. And so, you know, I see a picture there with Håkan Karlqvist behind me, and I sometimes think, wow, that's amazing. How did I get to that point? It sometimes doesn't seem real. There you go. There's another one. I wrote this one on Facebook once, and my friend Sean de Gruchy, who may be watching tonight, he said, you've got imposter syndrome, he called it. Because what I wrote about that photo is, that's a great photo from Sittendorf 86. Don't know who, Pat Boulon must have taken that. Fantastic French photographer who sadly drowned in the 80s. But that's me on the factory Kawasaki number 43. That was at the GP where I finished tied second in points. And there I am alongside Dave Thorpe. When I rode my first motocross meeting in 1977 at Bisley with the Severn Valley Schoolboy Scramble Club, I was a complete beginner, and I rode my bike around that track and just tried to get around without falling off. That was the first time I'd ever ridden a motocross bike. And that day, Thorpe was blitzing the Schoolboy Export class. And that was 1977. And so this photo that we're looking at now is a mere 9 years later than that. And I'm alongside that same David Thorpe on a factory Kawasaki. He's on a factory Honda. And we're both up the front in a 500 GP that I would leave that track that day, tied in second in the World Championship. And that's just 9 years after doing that race at Bisley. And that fills my mind.
I don't know.
How the hell did that happen? And there's me and DT as well.
Do you always get on well with Dave?
Yeah, he's a lovely guy. Yeah, he's a good friend of mine. Yeah, I can't say we go out for dinner and speak every week on the phone, but he's a lovely guy. I've known him for a very long time. I feel very privileged to call him a friend. He's the best rider that Britain's ever produced. He's not in the slightest bit arrogant or conceited. He's just a nice guy. He's always been helpful. He's always been respectful. And he was, you know, Great Britain had an awful lot of very good riders in the 80s, riding GPs, of which, you know, I was one of those good riders. But we were made to look ordinary by that man. That one man made us look ordinary. But at the same time, I consider him quite, in a large part, responsible for the surge in British talent during those 80s, because David was the standard bearer. He was the leader. He was the guy that was charging across the battlefield into 500 GPs, and he dragged all of us along with him. And that's what's missing at the moment in British motocross. And Thorpe would probably say, well, he was inspired by Graham Norris, and Graham will no doubt refer to Jeff Smith before him and so on. But, Thorpe was chasing that world championship. And at that point, it was like, that was the done thing. Well, you're going to do your best to progress up the ranks and go into 500 GPs. That's what we did. That was what everybody wanted to do. They don't do that these days. But, we all aspired to follow him into GPs and do as well as we could. And I think he dragged an entire generation of British riders up in terms of speed and dedication and training and everything else. And that seems to be missing today, that there is no leader to follow. There is no one that's paving the way into GPs. Got Ben Watson, who I don't know Ben personally. I knew his dad.
Yeah.
But Ben's struggling to break the top 10 in GPs, and he doesn't race British Championships. So who's dragging the British Championship guys along? There's nobody dragging the British Championship guys along. They're just kind of riding around in their own group. And it's become detached and out of touch with GPs, whereas it wasn't back in the 80s. You've got Thorpe and Noyce and Hudson and Thorpe and and then other guys, Kurt and Jeremy and Rob Herring, and all of these GP riders were coming back and were, what's the right phrase? They were sharing their speed. They were infecting the British Championship with their GP experience.
Yeah.
And I think to get fast, you've got to ride with the fastest riders. You gain nothing by being a big fish in a small pool. You need to be the small fish in the big pool, and you'll get dragged along. And that's what was happening in the 80s. And that's why we had quite literally half of the British Championship guys riding GPs. At certain 500 GPs in 87, a quarter of the field was British. 10 riders were qualified for 500 GPs.
Yeah.
It's nuts. And now we don't. We got one GP rider, is it? 2 GP riders?
Yeah, literally. And like you said, it was in them days, it was always stacked, wasn't it, throughout the top 15 at the time. We used to get points, wasn't it? And I remember getting the trials of Motocross every week. You always pick out the Brit guys, and there was, even in the 125s, all of it, there was always many riders, wasn't there?
I've got kind of an analytical, I like to figure things out. If I see a pass on a racetrack on the telly, I'll think, that's a good pass. And then I'll think, why did that pass happen there? Why was he able to pass him there and wasn't able to pass him somewhere else? I'll try and figure out what it is about that corner that made that pass possible. And so getting back to the GP riders, we had a lot of good GP riders in the 80s. Why? Let's take Thorpe out of the equation. Let's say, the other British riders, we didn't have more motocross talent back then than they have now. We didn't have better motocross genes then than they have now. So why aren't the riders as good now? Ask the question. That's what I do in the closing chapter of my book. Ask questions. Why was it I could beat Thorpe then, but I was never world champion? Why wasn't I world champion? Why was he? Let's see if there's anything we can learn from it. So why aren't riders as good at the moment? I don't know. I think it's a very complicated subject, and part of it is they've got nobody to follow, like Thorpe in the 80s. Nobody's racing GPs. They're all big fish in small pool. Nobody's rising to the challenge of GPs. Maybe people are more interested in being famous on Instagram than actually winning stuff. I don't know. I don't go to British Championship. I don't go to races anymore. I follow it. So I don't know what the answers are, but but I like to at least ponder questions that might arise from that.
Yeah, interesting.
That was a bit deep, wasn't it?
Was it? It happens, especially when those sort of questions come up.
Yeah, ask me what my favourite race number is or something.
Yeah.
Bring it down. Bring it down.
Yeah, bring it down. Paul Lyons has just put, love the interview. Very talented bloke, Rob. What jobs have you done, Rob, after motocross? I've seen your joinery work, which is awesome. You posted on Facebook, and also landscaping your garden is very impressive.
I had a proper job after motocross for quite a number of years. So I did proper work. I imported promotional gifts from the Far East. But in terms of, you mentioned the bits of furniture and garden and stuff. I like DIY type stuff. I make bits of furniture, make bits of oak furniture. I do a really good job, but God, I'm slow. I've got a cupboard which I posted a picture on Facebook 18 months ago. It hasn't moved since then. But I like making bits of furniture, and I like doing as good a job as I can. Likewise, if I've done landscaping in the garden, I'm a bit obsessive, really. I suppose you'd say it's OCD, but I like to, whatever I do, write in a book. I want to take the time and do it to the very best of my ability, and do the best possible job that I can. So when I make a bit of furniture, I try and do the best job that I can. And even the bits that you don't see are going to be spot on, and they're going to be made of solid oak. They're not going to be softwood or plywood or anything, because why wouldn't you do that? If you're going to do something, why not? Why wouldn't you try and do it the best that you can? If you're going to make a motocross book, why wouldn't you try and produce the best possible motocross book you can? Why would I want to produce a motocross book and then not print it to the best possible standards of quality that the printer can offer? That's why mine costs a little bit, because I put all that work in. I wanted the best paper and the best cover, and make the best book that I can. And when I built a patio at the back of my house, I wanted it to be perfect, because that's just the way I am. You know, I got this saying, "Good enough isn't quite good enough." You know, saying, "Oh yeah, that's good enough." No, it's not good enough. Do it right. Why wouldn't you want to do it right? That's what I did with motocross. I didn't go to the start line saying, I'm gonna just have an all right race. I'm not going to try and win. You know, 5th or 6th would be all right. No, I went to the start line wanting to win. Didn't always win. Probably quite often didn't actually honestly believe that I could win when you're racing against those guys. But I wanted to win. I wanted to do as best you could. You know, look at a factory bike mechanic. I said once to Jack Burnicle, he said about you know, making bits of furniture and your garage is nice and tidy. And I said, yeah, I blame Keith Thorpe. And he laughed and he said, why did you blame? What's Keith Thorpe got to do with it? I said, well, when Keith was working, David Thorpe's father, you know, he was so meticulous, and his van was so clean, and everything was and the bike was so well turned out. You know, like Formula One. Do you think that in Formula One they say, oh, that's good enough? Of course they don't. Everything's got to be perfect. So why shouldn't you go through life also trying to work and live to those same standards? That's another deep conversation, isn't it? Where are you taking me on this?
I don't know. You sound even like you're like my dad as well, and he was very meticulous and very precise with everything. My engines and bikes were always like unbelievable. He was like you. He seemed very detailed, very. And I'll tell you a word. He dropped on once we did an ITB News thing. It was just coming up to a British finals, BSMA finals, and they were interviewing my dad in the garden. And he was by the bike with all the part, you know, looking good for the camera and all that. And they said something to him, and he just come out with this word. We took the piss out of him at the time because obviously he said it, and he went, "I sort of got a systematically go for everything," and we were like, "Systematically." But he literally, like, do you know what I mean? Like you said, he does the proper job every single time. Everything was perfect. Didn't matter if I had 3 or 4-year-old bikes or whatever, they were as quick or if quicker than anyone else's and stuff like that. And just did like an amazing, thorough. He was slow as well, but he was slow. And you'd be like, oh, Dad, and everything had to be perfect.
Yeah, I like doing a good job. And with my woodwork, I'm very slow, but I enjoy making it. So why am I in a hurry to actually finish it? And then the bit I enjoy will be over then. So I take the time and do a good job. And at some point, I'll put it on Facebook. In fact, with this cover, this woodwork cover, I've actually been videoing it, which is long as well. So at some point, I might actually put together a build video of how I did it. Again, for my own amusement. I've never filmed anything. I've never put a video together before in my life. I don't know how to use the software, but I'll figure it out. I didn't know how to, because with my book, some people may not realize, I did the whole thing myself. I didn't just write it. I sourced all the photos. I edited all the photos. I did all the design and layout. I had a little bit of help with an initial style for the layout, but all of the page layout I did myself on InDesign. I'd never used InDesign before. I had no idea how to use it. So I learned it because it's good to learn new skills. And when I come to do this video, I can't even remember what Premiere Pro, I think, is the video software. Okay. I've had a quick look at it. I will figure it out because I'll enjoy doing that. Good to learn new things. Good to learn new skills.
I love that. That's brilliant. Simon Howells put, such a nice guy, borrowed my bike one day last year and was brilliant. He was brilliant with Adrian Mahoney. Rest in peace with Adrian.
I remember Simon very kindly lent me his bike at a track just up the road from where I live at the Brinksty Grand Prix last year, so thank you for that. Adrian Mahoney, I didn't know Adrian very well. Adrian Mahoney, if you don't know, was a rider from Gloucestershire that sadly had a spinal injury a long time ago. He was confined not just to a wheelchair but to his bed. He had no feeling from the neck down, and so it was a very sad situation. But despite his injury, he remained an amazing fan of motocross, and he used to go to the British GP at Matterley, and they'd set up his camper van there with his bed in the awning, and he'd watch the motocross from his bed. And he also used to watch at the BMXDN at Farley Castle. And Simon and some of his friends asked me if I could pop round and see him one day. And so I went round to visit him down near Chepstow, and his mum Jackie, and I took him some bibs. He had a big collection of stuff, and so that was the first time that I actually met him. But the other story that Simon might be referring to is a while after that, he was going to be going to the Matterley GP, British GP, and I think his favourite rider was Tim Geiser. And so I think it was Simon that asked me and said, Rob, you've got connections in the motocross world. Can you see if you can get Tim Geiser to carry a Mahoney, can't remember what his number was. It's like a Mahoney shield, with his race number on, a little sticker on his number.
Yeah, I've got some somewhere.
And I thought, Christ, Simon's like confusing me with somebody important. I haven't got any influence for that. To get, factory Honda to put an Adrian Mahoney sticker on his number plate. But I thought about it. I thought, well, I'll see what I can do. And so I spoke to Roger Harvey, who was the what was he, net manager at HRC.
Yeah.
And he said, I don't know. But I thought to myself, well, let's not just stay with Tim Geiser. So what I did is I actually tracked down the email addresses for all of the race teams in MXGP and MX2, and I contacted every one of those race teams, and I said, I wonder if you could do me a favour. This is this guy. This is his story. The poor guy, he sadly passed away. He passed away a couple of years ago, or maybe longer than that, which is very sad. But I said, told him the story, and I said, I want to see if I can get every single bike on that start line to carry this Adrian Mahoney sticker. And one by one, all these replies came in that said, yeah, we'd love to be part of that. And it was just like a wave of support. you know. And so once some teams were in, then other teams were, and then anyway, get to the day. I went down there on the Thursday. We managed to get stickers printed for free through Steve Dixon's graphics sponsor. I can't remember the name now. That's bad, isn't it? They printed the stickers for free. I went down and I introduced myself to all of these people. And I should add that Adrian and Simon didn't know that. I was doing this off my own bat. So I went down there and saw, and everybody, this is the weekend that Chad Reed rode as well.
Oh yeah, I remember that one.
Still, some teams are saying, "Oh, I don't know," you know, because the Japanese, you know, people pay a lot of money for this. And I said, "Come on, it's for a disabled guy. He's going to be watching it one weekend. You're going to make his dream come true. He knows nothing about this. What a surprise!" And that's what happened. Come Saturday morning, those bikes went out on the track. Every single bike in both classes had Adrian Mahoney on the front number plate. Ustream came on board. They mentioned it on the TV broadcast and everything, and it was brilliant. And Adrian didn't know until he got there, and it was awesome.
That was awesome. Number 73, I think it was.
Adrian, yeah, 73.
That's my head.
The whole MXGP community all came through on the day, which was brilliant.
That was so cool. I bet you absolutely loved that. Yeah. That's amazing. Bet he was absolutely buzzing with that. Bless him.
Yeah.
That's a super cool thing to do as well, isn't it?
Yeah, and I spoke to Luongo about it, and I said, "Can you get him a good position as well?" And so Luongo got him free passes, and he had his van on the infield as well, I think. So he, you know, because you know what Matters is like, you're like 100 yards from the action. I think they had a place where he could set up on the infield so he could get a good view of the action as well. So everybody from the factory teams to Giuseppe Luongo all came through.
That's really nice. Very nice. Pat's just said your Uncle Martin was like that, Lee, the most thorough engine genius out there. He could create a tool from scratch to fix a problem. Yeah, they were both like that. Pat, Martin and my dad. He's also put, "Yep, Premiere Pro. It's a lot of fun." So Pat's all over that.
Well, Pat's the he's the artwork genius, isn't he? He does some incredible artwork. Yeah. So, yeah, Premiere Pro, and I'm sure he knows InDesign and Paint Shop and Photoshop. So
yeah, he created my logo as well for my Motocross and Speedway memories. He created a logo for my dad with the quote I always say that he said, "It's nice to be important, but it's important to be nice." So he made one of them as well. Yeah, proper cool, really cool. Really cool. What were you going to ask? Oh, Dan Merrifield, he's riding at the reunion. He's put, "Can Rob do a lap at Whiteway on my Honda CRF 250?
That's very kind, but I'm hoping to be reacquainted with the 500 two-stroke, Dan. Yes. So Lee said that he's going to line one of those up for me. If it doesn't, then it'd be nice to have yours as a backup. So thank you for the offer.
I try my best, but suffer with massive imposter syndrome."
You and me both, Pat.
Sounds like quite a few people can resonate with what you said about that as well. Yeah, brilliant. What I was going to ask you about, I've got loads of questions about your book, but we'll have to do that at another one as well. But I'll ask this one as well. So what was the story about that? With that story about a con man around the GP and all that? That was like so weird. What are you allowed to say?
I'm not gonna name names, but
of course.
The condensed version of that was that I'd met this guy in about, I don't know, 84, 85. A British guy, 50-something, charming man. He was a motocross fan. He used to come to the races. Used to see him at the GPs. I remember asking him what he did for a living once, and he said, "Oh, I invest on the stock market." And so, to cut a very long story short, you know, I was good friends with him. He used to come with us to some of the races in our van. And so I said, "Well, can you invest some money for me?" And so he said, "Well, I don't normally do that, but yeah, okay." So he invested some money for me, and he told me that it was making, you know, a good return. And if I needed some money back, he'd say, "Yeah, no problem." And he'd bring me the money the next week and so on. And my little investment was growing, and all was good. And then he was going to be coming to the French GP in '87. He's going to be travelling down with us, and I couldn't get hold of him. And I was worried about the guy. So we went to the French GP, and then when I got there, I found out that everybody else was worried about him too. But it wasn't his well-being they were concerned with, because it turned out it wasn't just me that he'd invested money for. It was literally half the 500 GP paddock, which came as a complete surprise to me, because I genuinely, naively thought that he was just investing a bit of money for me because we knew him so well. And I didn't realise that anybody else even knew what this guy had done. But his net spread far and wide, and loads of people had given him money to invest. And that money was no more. And this guy blamed it on an accomplice, said that this accomplice was the one that was investing the money, not him. But long story short, all the money went, and everybody was rather pissed off about it. And some people lost a lot of money, a lot of money, hundreds of thousands. And other people lost smaller amounts. And people lost it. Some people lost it who really couldn't afford to lose it. And it was a brutal life lesson about if something sounds too good to be true, it usually isn't. But there you go. So many years later, this guy somehow escaped going to prison. His accomplice did some prison time. The accomplice that supposedly had invested the money, I'd never even heard of the guy. As far as I was told, it was the first guy that had been investing my money. So I was quite surprised when he shifted the blame downstream to somebody else. And he was never seen again. I think he turned up at the odd local race somewhere, but yeah.
Wow.
That's it. All goes on in the 500 GP paddock.
It's absolutely mad. Right, let's try and get one more in before I go. We're going to have to break the 3-hour barrier now anyway, because we're 5 minutes away. So we might as well break it. Right. So what about one of the stories about Alec Wright? Yeah.
You're running out of time.
Should have asked that at the start.
What can I say about Alec? I will start by saying that I respected Alec a lot.
Yeah.
I'm very grateful for the opportunities that Alec gave me. Alec was the team manager at Team Kawasaki.
Yeah.
Alec helped me out when I had an unreliable, uncompetitive Mako in '85, and I needed to get off that Mako. Alec stepped in and helped me out with bikes. The next year, I was on Team Kawasaki, and I got to ride a full factory bike, which is the one in that photo right there. And I ended up second at the first GP and ended up finishing 9th in the World Championship. None of that would have happened had it not been for the opportunities. There it is. That's the actual bike being restored. None of that would have happened without the opportunities that Alec provided for me.
Yeah.
When I went back to them in '88, things didn't work out very well for us. I'd already said to you I didn't get a bike to ride at the start of the season and so on, and it wasn't a good season for me. And so we parted. That isn't me. That's Lawrence Spence, you know.
Is it?
That's Lawrence Spence. DBR used that in a feature on my interview on me when I launched my book, and that's actually Lawrence Spence.
I bet that's why I picked it out. Killed me there.
So we, and he ended up taking my van and mechanic away from me halfway through the season in 1988. I think it's a bizarre situation because I couldn't see what it was going to achieve.
Yeah.
88 hadn't gone very well. I'd started off like 2 months behind everybody else because I didn't have a bike to ride. I then had a head-on car crash. I then had some concussions. The bike was unreliable. We were breaking crankshafts. So lots of issues. I wasn't doing very well. And so his solution to that situation was to take my van and mechanic off me. And it didn't achieve anything other than make me very pissed off with Kawasaki.
Yeah.
And that's really the nuts and bolts of it. Now, I'm sure that Alec thought that it was the right decision and it was in the best interest of Kawasaki, even though they continued sending that same empty van and my former mechanic to all the remaining GPs anyway, without me. I had to go and buy my own van and hire my own mechanic. So they didn't save money. They continued to pay me, so they didn't save anything by doing it. All it did was, well, Alec must have thought that it would light a fire under my belly, and I would buck my ideas up to prove him wrong. And I don't know. So that's really about the gist of it. And so we parted out ways in the end of '88. But I go back to what I said at the beginning. I didn't dislike Alec. I respected him a lot. I went to his funeral and paid my respects at his funeral, and had no hard feelings with him. So that's all I can say really about Alec.
Simon just said they wouldn't let you have a 125 for the donations.
No, but I understand that situation, because the reason that I got the call for the 125 at the Nations was because all of the UK importers were in dispute with the ACU about the fact that there was a British Championship on the same day as the MXDN. So they weren't going to release their contracted riders and miss a round of a British 250 125 Championship to go and race a 250 or 125 in Geldorf. It was the ACU's fault. And so Alec couldn't, I understood why he couldn't help me. Even if he had a 125 there, he couldn't help me, because that would be doing the dirty on Honda, Yamaha and Suzuki. And they were all together, butting heads with the ACU, saying you shouldn't hold a 125 and 250 on the same day as the Nations. So that was why he couldn't lend me a 125.
When you think about it as well, though, like in terms of that, like such a massive meeting you're going to be going to, and like you're buying a second-hand bike off a schoolboy. Couldn't even imagine that now these days, could you? Like, can you imagine?
Well, no, you hear of people not racing, mainly in America, because they can't get the latest ECU, whatever one of those is. Like, really, just ride the bike, I went to Geldorf thinking, I'm so pleased to be at this event.
Yeah.
There's the 39th best rider in the 500 class riding for Great Britain. By let's be honest, a fluke. I shouldn't have been selected for that team. However, I rode my fucking arse off at that race and justified that, because I finished 6th in that 125 class behind Ron Lachine, the top 3 in the World 125 Championship, all on factory bikes, and the German National Championship on home ground, and I was 6th. And so on a shitty old second-hand bike I bought from a schoolboy. So I justified my position. But when I went there, I didn't even dream of thinking, well, I haven't got a competitive bike, so I'm not going to go. If I'd have had to ride that 80 at Western, I'd have ridden it there. I'd have ridden the arse off that bike, because that's what I would do. Why would you not do that? Your bike's slow. Just ride it. Do the best that you can on it.
At that time, was that more satisfying, the fact that you did that like that?
I didn't think of it as satisfying. I thought of it as the elation of getting the unexpected call up to ride for your country, and then the deflation of finding out that Kawasaki couldn't help me. But I didn't want to lose that opportunity. I didn't want to turn around and say, I'm sorry, I can't find a bike, and I'm not going to buy one, because why should I buy a bike to go and race? I wasn't above buying a bike. I'd be given that most unlikely opportunity to get one of those.
Beautiful.
And I was going to go and so, yeah, I'm going to go out and buy a bike. Absolutely, I was going to go out and buy a bike. It never crossed my mind. I was going to race that event. If I could have borrowed a 125 off somebody, I would have done. If one of my mates in the AMCA had a 125 Kawasaki, I would have said, please, can I borrow your bike? And he would have gladly lent it to me, I'm sure. But none of my friends rode a 125. So I had to go out and buy one. And I never thought twice about it, about not going because of that bike. And when I got there, I never even thought twice about the fact that I was down on power and suspension and everything else. I just thought, well, I'm going to have to ride even harder then. I'm going to get the most out of this bike that I possibly can, wherever that might be. You know, I didn't know I was going to finish 6th in the class. I could have finished 30th in the class. I don't know. I was just going there to do the best job that I could for the team and for my country and for my own satisfaction.
Before we go, can I just ask us about that as well? What happened after? What happened with the bike, and do you know where it is now?
My memory is we sold the bike. My memory is a bit hazy about it.
Yeah.
Mechanic Ken Bulf, he lived down in just the other side of Bath, Colford.
Yeah.
Is it Col? Yeah, is there a Colford south of Bath?
I know Bath, but I don't know.
Down towards Frome.
Oh, I know Frome. Yeah, there was a track there, wasn't there?
Close to Frome. Anyway, he lived down there, so he took the bike back with him, and then he tidied it up and he sold it. I don't know who he sold it to. Probably some local guy down there. Ken would have probably told him what the bike was used for. I've no idea where it is now.
Well, I wonder where that is.
I wish he kept that bike, but no, really. It would just be sat in the garage. You know, it's a bike. It's like when Thorpe sold his 3 factory Hondas. I picked one of those up because my friend bought his 85 bike, and my friend lives overseas. And he said, "Can you pick it up?" So I picked up Thorpe's 85 bike from Keith. I remember coordinating it with David. And I said, "Why do you sell those bikes?" And he said, "They just don't have the emotional connection to me that people think they should have." And I can fully understand that with David. The guy that restored my 500 Kawasaki, he asked me, he said, "I've got a spare front number plate from it, which is, you know, a plate that you used in the French GP in '86 or whatever. Would you like me to send it to you?" And I said, "No, not really, because it's just a piece of plastic." I think it means, it means more to fans than just to the riders. And so for David, those are just 3 factory Hondas that were just bits of metal. Didn't mean so much to him. So that's why I wouldn't particularly be interested in that 125. Just another bike.
Yeah, it's definitely a fan's thing.
Strange, isn't it?
Yeah.
And when I see, I was in America last October. Go to America quite often, and a couple of friends, you might be listening, like Barry and Lisa. I managed to wangle them a tour around a KTM factory in Murrieta. And you go in there, and they've got all Cooper Webb's factory bike, and Barry's taking photos of it. And I don't even give it a second glance. Why is that? I don't know. Is it because I've been around this sport too long? I don't know. The fact that it's Cooper Webb's Supercross winning bike really doesn't mean anything to me.
Yeah. Hard to be impressed.
Yeah, I'd be, you know, the factory bikes from my era, I suppose I'd be interested to have a look at those again. You know, if there was a YZ 500 sat there and Thorpe's 86 bike, I'd spend 5 minutes looking around those. But I wouldn't want it sat in the garage. Just like when Thorpe's 85 bike was sat in my garage for about 4 weeks until it was shipped overseas. I didn't go outside and drool over it every night.
No.
I just, you know, I would open the garage or I'd see it there and I'd think, I hope somebody doesn't nick that before it gets shipped, because it's worth a few quid.
Yeah, just a bit.
Interesting to look at though, but yeah, not a super fan when it comes to the machinery.
Yeah, I think it's maybe more of a fans thing, like you said. That might make sense for sure.
But when I first met Roger DeCosta at KTM, that was the first I felt a little bit starstruck.
Did you?
Yeah.
Did you? Now you know how we feel. Now you know how I feel in these interviews.
Come on, Lee. You've had some fine people on here over the years. You must be, you know, you're mixing with the great good. You're used to it by now.
No. I'm a definite fanboy. I wouldn't change from that. Oh, I ring my missus and I'll say I've just met Ricky Johnson at Fox Hill, blah blah blah, and she's like, "Who's that?" And I'm like, "Oh,
Oh, my wife's like that.
yeah,
Well,
who's that? Who's
around
that?"
motor
It's,
for
oh,
a while, she'll just say, "Well, are they a nice person?"
yeah,
That's the important thing. Not
yeah,
how fast you go around a bike. What's Pat
definitely
saying?
a fan. He's definitely a fan thing. I can spend hours around factory two strokes, but nothing today interests me. Yeah, I struggle with that part as well. Yeah.
Some people do like looking at the bikes and they like the technical side of it.
Hmm.
I don't particularly. I like
No.
to see exciting racing,
Yes.
and exciting racing means passing, and that's what we don't get enough of in motocross these days. Best
Right.
race I've ever seen was that British Speedway final with Bomber Harris.
Oh yes.
You know that
Which
one.
one was there?
But which one's that when he won the final at Cardiff?
Yes, brilliant. Yeah, he passed Greg Hancock on the last corner, didn't he? It was really quite
I don't
rutty.
follow
And,
Speedway. I came
yeah.
upon um, on YouTube, and I watched that over and over again. It's
Mm,
only 4 laps, as you know. There's no jumps, no
mm,
right-hand corners, but it's exciting racing. What an atmosphere!
mm,
Why can't we get that in motocross?
that was epic. That was really cool. I went to, yeah, that was only the second time I went to Cardiff GP last year, and a Brit, Dan Bewley, won it, so that was quite cool. But then there was loads of people that weren't there because of all these bloody train strikes at the time. So there was loads of people that didn't travel. So
I was there too. That's the first time I've been to Cardiff.
was it?
Yeah, I've been
Are
to
you
all
there?
these years. I've been involved with motocross, and I
Yeah,
went
yeah,
to Speedway once the year before.
yeah.
At,
Where was
at
that?
Craig Heath, Wolverhampton,
Oh,
Wolverhampton.
yeah, back in the day. Yeah, yeah. Oh,
First time I
Wolverhampton.
ever watched Speedway,
Yeah.
and I went there. And then I went with my golfing friend, and we went to Cardiff last year to see Dan Bewley win it, and that
Mm,
was the best motorsport event I've been to.
mm,
Atmosphere and the fact that everybody was into it. And
mm.
what made me think is that when I went to watch the Speedway at Wolverhampton, if that's where it
Yep,
was, there
yeah,
was about 1,500 people there,
yeah,
old guys and ladies in wolf sport jackets filling in the results in the program on
yeah.
old dog track, and it was like going back into the 1960s, and it's
Yes.
great. And I had a thoroughly good evening.
Yeah.
You go to Cardiff Speedway GP, and it's like, where the hell did all these people come from? And you say it wasn't as full there. It looked
No, it
pretty
wouldn't.
full to me. It looked like there was, 30, 40,000 people there.
Mm,
And those 30, 40,000 people, they were all on it from the very first race.
mm,
There was no spectator commentator saying, "Come on, wave your program." Everybody was full on into that atmosphere from
yeah,
the get go, and it was
yeah.
awesome.
Really good.
I'll be going back
Really
there every year this year. Sounds like I'm employed
good.
as a salesperson for Speedway Grand Prix. I'm not.
Yeah,
That was just if you've never been to the Speedway GP at
yeah,
Cardiff, go and see it. It is
yeah.
awesome.
Can't believe it was only my second time last year as well.
Yeah,
It's like not far from me, Swindon. It's only about an hour or so. Hopefully, I'll get to meet you next time there as well. Then
it's a big
that'd be
place.
good. It is big. It is
Big,
big. It'll have to be a text job.
yeah,
We're over here.
yeah, yeah.
Can I buy Rob Andrews a drink?
Oh, it's a
Orange juice, obviously.
long queue at the bar.
Yeah, I know. Jesus, you have to be there a bit early.
But yeah, I'll be there this year. Yeah, we'll look forward to
Yeah,
it.
yeah, I wouldn't mind going back there again. That was really good. Like you said, there's normally probably another third of that again, Rob, normally. Um, yeah, at least. So you
I'm,
can
I'm
imagine
trying
what
to
the
see
atmosphere is
I'm trying to see lots of different things. I've never done Speedway. We're going to go and watch truck racing this year. My golfing friend Richard.
like.
We've been going through this bucket list thing. I've taken him golfing in California. We've been to watch the Formula One. Been to watch British Superbikes. We're going to do the truck racing thing. We want to do drag racing. Never been to see drag racing. Um, yeah, lots of things.
What
I'd
about
love to
grass
see.
track?
Never been to a grass track.
No, they're good.
Yeah.
I know a couple of guys that are involved, the Hurries. Graham Hurry organises them and stuff, and he said about that I could go to some of theirs, and I'd like to go to one of them. They look really good.
Yeah, life's too short. Should see things like that. I went to what's it called? The hill climb that they had on Monday.
Is that the one? I think Brian
Wheeler
was at one the other day. I don't know.
Yeah, that one.
Yeah.
The name escapes me. It's just up the road from me. I've lived around here 23 years. Didn't go to it until the year before. It would be 2019. Last time it was on before COVID.
Yeah.
Red Marley Hill Climb.
It's awesome coverage.
And that was brilliant. It's not one of those steep hills like they have in France where you can't get up it. It's a more gentle hill. And the year I went, it was all for old bikes, like old British bikes and Red Marley. There you go. People telling me the name.
Yeah.
But what was nice about that is that when I got there and I had a walk through the pits, it was like I'd gone back to schoolboys in the 1970s. Because there were no motorhomes there. There were no big vans. People there with cars and trailers and transits and stuff. And you could smell Castrol R on some of these old bikes. And, some of them were early, mid-70s twin shock things. And it was a real time-traveling thing for me. Just took me back to when I first discovered motocross and walking through the pits and what it looked like. It was great. A lot of people there as well.
I look good.
Yeah.
Never seen one of them either. It's quite a few. I think I'd have quite a big look at this.
Wheeler's too fast and good to be doing something like that. I saw a video before we got on this of him going up, and he was ripped there.
Yeah.
Brian, if you're watching or you watch this later, you're too good for that, mate.
Yeah. I saw him have a cheeky.
Brian. I mean, Brian has just never stopped racing. That guy is as keen as he ever used to be. Lovely bloke, insanely fast. Funny man. I admire your continued enthusiasm for this sport, Brian. I wish I felt the same.
I saw him ride on the Good Friday as well at Marshfield on the 500 Honda and won the over 50s, I think it was. Yeah.
Doesn't he get bored winning all the time?
He was going along the bit where I was stood by the pits because I was just by the team of these ultimate Honda wheel guys, Jamie Smith and that. And I was stood there, and every lap wheeler come round, he was going by everyone going, he's mental. Oh, he's cracks me up.
A semi-serious question for somebody like Brian that has raced and he continues to race and he continues to win. Is it what's the drug here for Brian? Is it that he just likes riding bikes, or he just likes competition, or he likes the winning?
I'd like to ask him.
I don't know, because he's done it that many times.
Yeah.
Does it get boring winning all the time?
He definitely seems to be enjoying himself still.
Yeah.
How's
his body holding up after all those years of racing? I've raced a fraction of the number of years that Brian has, and my knees are awful.
Yeah. And he's probably done like the sort of whole of his sort of pro career. He's probably done that all again time-wise, isn't he, afterwards?
Oh, yeah.
It's mad.
It's 30 years. So if he raced 10 years as a pro and he's racing 30 years, it's
mad.
It's insane. It's insane.
He must be all right body-wise.
Yeah.
I'm sat here now with a body belt thing on my back. And I'm only 46.
Yeah.
Oh, nightmare. Rob, I really appreciate your time. We've been on for 3 hours and 20 minutes. Where did that go?
It's been a lot of fun. It's been a lot of fun.
I really enjoyed it. We're gonna have to do another one, by the way. So I'm gonna have to hold you to it.
Absolutely, I'm quite happy to do it. You and I talked through a bit of the material that we might cover.
Yeah.
As you said, we've not gone through half of that.
Oh no, I know.
But
I'm
happy to do a version 2 or as many versions as you want. You just let me know.
Awesome. Thank you, mate. I appreciate that. That'd be really cool. Thank you very much for coming to the reunion as well. It'd be good to have a ride round on a 500.
Yeah, beautiful. See, that's only a couple of weeks, isn't it? The end of
the month. That's flying away as well.
I'm looking forward. I'm looking forward to that. I'm looking forward to seeing, a lot of old friends. Perry, who was on earlier. That'll be nice. Also looking forward to seeing that track because I haven't been back to that track since 1989, 1990. So it'd be good if I can have a little ride round. That will be great. I'll take some. Yeah, it looks lush. And have a little ride round. That will be great as well. I'll bring some gear down with me.
Oh yes.
So yeah,
signature.
Yeah, I'm looking forward to that. And if you're watching this and you're thinking about riding but you haven't booked in yet, then do it. It's going to be a really great weekend.
Yes, can't wait now. Just obviously we'll all be fingers crossed in and just it'd be nice if it's just be spot on if it's a dry one that weekend. It'd be awesome. I'll be Met Office watching for the next couple of weeks doing that. But yeah, fingers crossed it'll be all good. Hopefully my dad's looking down. But yeah, I was just literally going to quickly say some of the guys that are coming down with you. Well, you've probably, a few of the guys have probably seen who's coming down, but it's just super cool. Yourself, Craig Prattley, Dave Watson. Not anyone's seen Dave around for quite a while, so that'd be cool as well. Ricky Priest, Russ Jarman is also racing and doing that as well. Greg Hansen's going to be racing in the vets as well as doing the legends. Julian Clark, Dan Beamish, Perry Leask is now going to be there to watch but can't ride. Colin Thomas is going to be riding. Jeff Perrott, Julian Rawson, Matt Gordon, Graham Noyce, Andy Gilbert. It's like a British Championship round, isn't it, in the heydays?
Yeah.
Oh, I'm super excited, as you can imagine.
That'll be good. A good bunch of lads you got there.
Be so cool. A lot of reminiscing to be going on.
Well, yeah.
Can't wait. But really do appreciate your time, Rob. Really do appreciate it. You were so thorough with your answers and everything. It makes it very interesting. Everyone loved it. There's loads of comments already coming in. Thanks, guys. Brilliant interview. Look forward to seeing you soon, Rob. Great interview. Such a great interview. Great interview, Lee. What a legend as well with Rob. Yep. Beautiful.
And my phone's been beeping with book orders all night as well. So that's nice. So thank you for that.
Perfect. No problem. Happy to help you as well with that. And pleasure's all mine to have you on. I really appreciate it, mate. Thank you very much.
Thank you for your time. And thanks, everybody, for watching. And look forward to seeing some of you at Higher Rokem in a couple of weeks. Awesome.
See you all soon. Cheers, okay. Rob. Good time, mate. Cheers, buddy. Thank you, mate. All the best. Thanks, Rob. What a legend. Beautiful. Loving that. What a guy. Coming to the reunion as well. Woo. It's like a British Championship round in the 80s, boys and girls. When I read them out, I was getting a little bit excited. I need a toilet as well. Rob's had a couple of breaks. I didn't. I'm like, oh my God. This back belt thing doesn't help me when I need to go to the toilet. Probably just to sit here and wet myself. I thought if we just keep going, I should probably just wet myself here. I mean, that's when I started reading these names out. I thought I better be a bit careful when I'm reading these out. Might start the flow. Oh, classic. Oh, yes, Ben, my friend. Hopefully we'll be together at Ling and doing a bit of shimmying together. Who would have thought that day, eh? In the old Morden Schoolboy Scramble Club days? Me and you at a British Championship together, eh? Doing a bit of commentary. Dreams for us, isn't it, my boy? Dreams possibly can come true. Oh, I thought it was over for me when I found out Father Christmas wasn't real. I'm like, right, that's that then. Thank you very much. Thanks for all coming on. There was loads on all night. Unbelievable. Awesome. Well over 100 online most of the night. See a few of you disappearing near the end, but it's now 10:30 and we started at 7. But then again, people do say to me, some of them are normally like 2 hours, 3 hours. I'm like, I know. Where does the time go, though? Where does it go? Always goes fast when you're enjoying yourself, isn't it? How does your time go at work this week? But how does your time go when you're on holiday? No more questions, Your Honour. Yes, buddy. Let me know, Pat. Be cool to have you there, mate. check out Pat's 90s Motocross. Who doesn't know about 90s Motocross on social media? Cheers, Scott. Thanks, Warren, for coming on. Thanks, Mr. Neary. Hope you're good. Keep that collection going, buddy. Apparently, Martin's going to bring me a surprise to the reunion. Ain't you, Martin? That means absolutely anything. Bring anything. Even a sticker. I'm a sticker guy. You know, one of those weirdos that like stickers? That's me. I'm one of them as well. Thanks, Andy. What a cool guy, eh? He goes into massive detail of everything. You can see how cool his book is. Let's be fair. If you read this book, then you'll know how Rob rolls. Details, details, details. Very thorough, very cool. Like you said, I think a few of you mentioned on some of the comments, you feel like you're there. It is very good. I read the book in 2 days. Wow, and that was only like a couple of hours sittings each. I literally just did that. I got to keep going on this. Thanks, Gary. Thanks, Mike. Oh, Jesus. You doing that, are you? Have a listen to Le Mans on Eurosport this weekend, 6 till 8, Saturday. Plug, plug, plug. Ben's hanging with the guys on the Eurosport. Just hanging around on the Le Mans. Like you do. He's loving life. Fair play, mate. Great interview. Thanks, Brett. Dan, awesome interview. Very interesting guy. Rob, great interview. See you in 2 weeks. Ride it, baby. Ride it. Ride it. Thanks, Dean, buddy. Man, look at the shapes. Get me like that, Dean. Can I do it from sitting here in front of interviews? You got any of those machines that do the whole... Hook me up. I'm dying of death. Oh, so disappointing. Used to be one of the fittest guys racing motocross to an absolute mess, basically, mate. Thank you very much, everyone. I have seen that I've got loads of messages on social media and stuff. I've just been spotting that when I spoke to someone else. I did say to a few of them, because they were trying to book in, that I will catch up with you as soon as possible. As soon as I come off of here, I will get answering some of them messages and get some cheese on toast or something. Plain Jane me. Easily pleased on the food front, which annoys my missus no end. Not sure if she's still awake. Probably, maybe not. Not hearing a lot of movement out there. But thanks ever so much for everyone coming on. Like I said, our reunion's only in a couple of weeks away now. What we're on the 12th of April, so it's like the 29th and 30th. So I think it's 2 weeks this weekend. So like I said, get booked in. I think I've only got like 2 places left in the over 45 vets. We're filling up a novice free group now because of the demand on that. We put another 2 groups that didn't have that many in together. What else have I got? I've got some spaces in inters. Juniors is full, novice 1's full, novice 2's full. So we're well into novice 3 already. So if you want to get booked in with me, I've got MX1 and MX2 spaces. And I've got Evo, Super Evo 125 spaces and 250, 500 Evo, Super Evo spaces. Those groups are together but scored separately. So that'll be interesting to see that as well. Plus, obviously, the legends who will do 2 sessions per day. At the end, on Saturday, they'll do a session at the end of each block, the first 2 blocks, because they're only going to do 2, so they won't do one at the end of the third. Because there's 3 races on Saturday for all the racers, and 2 races for everyone on Sunday, and then it'll be the top 5 from each group overall will race the super final at the end of the meeting for our Mr. Steve Wheeler and David Ashby Memorial Trophy, a big one. You might have seen Luke Burton win it last year at Culham. I know that man is passing it on to a friend to get that back to us, ready for Reunion 3. So our 2 champions so far have been the local man down there, Harvey James, in the first one, the MX2 class. And then it was Luke Burton last year from the MX1 class. And yeah, so it'll be interesting. Looking forward to it. I'm excited, nervous, scared, all those. Oh, it feels like the first one all over again. But I know that once we get on the race commentary, all the pressures and all the worries and all my sleepless nights, and there's a reason I always look like that. I always need mental therapy after a reunion, all the personal booking in. Haywire, but I like to be personal with it anyway, so can't moan about it. Yeah, 100% Wayne. How are you doing, buddy? Another one of the Malden boys. Beautiful. Hope you're good, Wayne. But yeah, better quote the old man before I go. Don't forget that, Lee. I might be tired, but not that tired. There he is. The old man, bless him. That's the thing as well, because obviously it's been so cool. Like I said, when I first started all this stuff, nothing was a plan of anything. I was just chasing all the local heroes, as it were. Spoke to all the BSMA guys and girls. Did loads of Q&As to chasing stars and stuff like that, which was hard work, trust me. But once you start getting contacts and it just snowballed from there, wish this guy could have seen some of these cool things I've got to do. Just mad. Especially all the Speedway heroes as well, which obviously my dad was Speedway and my uncle as well. Yeah, I just wish he was around. He would have saw it, like especially obviously the reunions. That's why it was such an emotional thing, because it was all in loving memory of me and Kevin's dads for the super final, and loving memories for all the groups and all guys coming back together from the 80s and 90s, and plus all the new guys in there as well. It's been super cool. Everything's a reminisce, isn't it? And at the end of the day, once you've done something yesterday, it's a memory. So love to keep all the memories alive. My humble personal opinion, the 80s and 90s was the nuts, and that's what tickles my balls. But yeah, so I will say what he said to me before I lost him, 2015. This man, he was my hero, and he always used to quote to me, and thanks very much, Pat Stott. I don't know if he's left, but he's done a lovely logo of my dad racing with his quote as well, and saying, he used to say to me, it's nice to be important, but it's important to be nice. What a ledge. What a ledge. So we'll leave it on that. Only you 3.5 hours. Much love to you all. Really appreciate everyone coming on. Thank you very much. Much love to you all. We'll keep you all updated on what interviews I'm going to be doing, and might tone it down a little bit now for the next 2 weeks, because I am flat out with everything and it's off the head. So, but yeah, like I said, message me on any social media. I think my number's pretty much out there as well. You can WhatsApp me, text me, and get booked in. So we're hoping to put on another really cool reunion. Looking forward to it. Like I said, all the emotions of everything. It's going to be haywire. Won't be sleeping too much. But yeah, we're looking to put on the best event we can again for you guys. First two have gone amazing. Couldn't have dreamed of it. It was a total pipe dream. To making that a reality was amazing. To be on to the third one. All these legends coming as well. All you guys I know personally and everything. Yeah. Too cool for school. All of it is. It's nuts. Oh, just riding the wave of love of it all. It's mental. Absolutely mental. But thanks very much for coming on, and speak to you all soon. Thank you very much. Good night and God bless. Speak to you all soon. Thanks, Graham. Cheers, mate. Much love all. See you all soon. Book in. Reunion 3. We'll do the air horn, but I think people might be asleep in the house. Don't forget to bring the air horns.